know. I think we're all in a better mood.
Yeah. And we can comb our hair.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order. This is a regular meeting of the Flagler Beach City Commission. Today is Thursday, April 9th. The time is 5:30. We'll start this with the Pledge of Allegiance, and we will follow that by a moment of silence to honor our veterans, members of the armed forces, and first responders.
To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Probably should have said the mayor was going to lead us. Yeah, it's just implied. All right. And we have some formalities. Mayor, is that going to be you? All right. Chief, come on up.
Good evening, everybody. City manager, elected officials, the public. Thank you for having us here tonight. Today I stand before you because we want to recognize one of our own, actually two of our own, firefighter Evans and firefighter Malak. Unfortunately, firefighter Malak is not able to attend as he lives in the city of Cocoa and was traveling in I-95, and I-95 being I-95 is doing its thing right now. So we will reschedule his ceremony for the next meeting. But I stand before you to explain our probationary period in the Flagler Beach Fire Department. Our probationary period is designed to test more than just skills. It's a test of character, it's a test of work ethic, and it's a commitment to this team. It's not easy, and it's not meant to be. Being a small city that is tasked with an all-hazards approach, we have to be versatile and we have more responsibilities than the typical fire department in the region. Firefighter Evans, if you please join me. Firefighter Evans, today we recognize that you've met that standard. You've shown that you could be trusted and that you're capable on the fire ground. And it's something that you understand what it means to be part of something bigger. It's bigger than yourself. You've shown this through training, and we've witnessed this on the fire ground. Earning this moment means you've gained trust of those beside you, and it's one of the highest honors in this profession. May I ask Firefighter Evans' significant other, Savannah, please approach. Firefighter Evans, congratulations for passing your probationary firefighter period. It would be my honor to pass this on to your significant other for the pinning.
Thank you, sir.
By one harm. Thank you.
We're not done. Firefighter Evans, this is not the finish line. This is the starting point. The expectations only increase from here. Continue to trace, stay humble, and take care of your people. And here's some insight. As you turn the page onto the next chapter in this book, the pages you find will be empty. When you look back, it is what is written by yourself through your career. So I encourage you to always train, always be by your brother and sister, and always put the public first because they rely on you. Congratulations.
Appreciate it.
All right, thank you, Chief. And we'll move on to deletions or changes to the agenda. City Manager, none. Penny? None. All right, in that case, and none up here? All right. We'll move on to public comment. This is for items not on the agenda. Citizens are encouraged to speak. Each speaker is up to 3 minutes to address the chair. One opportunity to speak. No time can be allotted to another speaker. And by all means, come on up and please start with your name and address for the record.
Rick Bellium, Flagler Beach. Your last meeting, you guys approved these Miami curbs, and I'm just pretty upset about the fact that I was promised that part of the next water intrusion project, trying to keep the water out of the alleys, would include 15th Street, where it diverts into the alley and hits the back of my apartment building, and it has flooded all 4 apartments repeatedly. And that's just a rainstorm. That's not a hurricane. Or I think you've all seen the videos that I have, the sequence of them. How it goes past, it jumps in the alley, and then it goes behind the property facing 15th Street, hammers the back of my building, goes underneath the sliding doors, and then right back out to the street again. So it just diverts through my property. Those people each pay their stormwater fees. So that's 4 stormwater fees. And you're doing something that doesn't have a real use. Those Miami curbs up on the top of the hill between A1A and Central are useless. The water doesn't flow into those alleys. Most of them, the ones that are proposed to be done that way, have already had the aprons done with the asphalt. So they're going to have to get dug up to do it anyway. The real problem is between Central and Daytona. So I'm just wondering why I was promised that I would get something done at 15th Street along with the next project to divert water from alleys and was totally ignored when this came around. And now you're wasting stormwater money on something that's not going to make any difference. And I don't want to say beg, but I think the city owes me the protection of my property from the stormwater going down 15th Street, because it just ends up back on 15th Street anyway. It's not water from my property, it's water from the street. And it's inconveniencing not only the tenants, but I have to fill sandbags and try and protect their property as well as my own. And I was promised it would be done, and I hope you guys will see to it that it does. I'll be happy with the berm similar to the one I showed you a picture of last round. Just divert the water from that alley. It's not right.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
My name is Greg Norton. I live in Palm Coast at 161 Eric Drive. I come before you as we have resubmitted a new street map that I was able to talk to some of you about. Unfortunately, maybe not all of you, and I apologize for that. But this map, we would open up 4th Street completely. We would not be using it at all. And the closure for South 3rd Street, if on the left there, those 3 barricades would be moved at 10 o'clock when registration is over to the corner right out here. So 3rd Street would be completely open after 10 o'clock. Remember, we're talking about October 11th, a potentially slower part of the season. I was told that you can make motions and or correct motions for people that are doing public comment. I hope that's still true. We went around and talked to the businesses in Pouring Rain Tuesday, and all of them welcome having the Corvette show here because of the amount of adults it'll bring to the area. So what I'm asking for, I guess, is an amendment to the March 26th agreement you made, or proposal you made, for just closing out here and letting us keep South Central open from 100 to to 2nd, and keep up 2nd closed from the corner out here on the building all the way down to the wall, if you know where Cabuzzi's is, that wall, their parking lot would still be open. I know it's a one-way, but at least people would be able to get to that area easily. So I'm asking for a motion to either accept this map as we request, or maybe Mr. Martin, Dale, would you be, you gave Mr. Martin the authority to direct traffic for the show, but not to coordinate barricades. Would he be acceptable to work with us to achieve this map in an orderly way? Is a question, if he would do that.
Anything else?
Can I ask you any comment can I ask or answer any questions?
Well, what we'll do is, this is for your public comment this time, and anything that you have to say to share with us. And then what we do is we close public comment, and then we bring it up back for discussion. And if any questions come up, then we can call you up.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Hello, Mark M. Hoof, 261 Ocean Palm Drive, beautiful Flagler Beach, Florida. I'm just curious what's going on with the 40 acres that the citizens own down there that was called the Ocean Palm Golf Course. I'm very curious what's going on there because it's, that guy's really driving it over the ground. I don't know if you guys have been down there lately, but 14 years in Flagler Beach, it's easily the worst it's ever looked. Why was he not buying it? Why was he given such an amazing deal on the sales agreement? Mr. Lawyer, I have no clue what's going on around here, but there are citizens that will run that. There are a dedicated group of citizens down there. They've already been running it for years, the Snowbird Volunteers. There's people that want that property. And if this guy's going to mess around, I hope that you guys will cancel that sale, keep it, and let the citizens run it. It would be organized, money would be put into it. Please don't let the city run it, is what everybody wants. But I don't know what's going on down there. I'm just curious. I have no clue what's going on down there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Items not on the agenda. All right, seeing no more closed public comment. City manager, we'll go to you first. We got two topics. One is status of the golf course, just a general update, and the other thing is if you could give us your thoughts and respond to Mr. Belhumer's comments about the projects and the layout and the rationales.
With the Miami curbs, you guys approved the plan 5-0, so staff is moving forward with that plan, unless you want to direct me otherwise. But it passed unanimously. The locations were given, so staff is moving forward with that direction. With regard to the Ocean Palm Golf Course, the potential owner has submitted his 30-day extension. So I think the date for that now expires May 7th or early May, along those dates. I know Mr. Smith's been in touch with Mr. Livingston regarding that, but that he has allowed 3 extensions. I've been led to believe that this is the only extension that he will be seeking, and then he'll be moving forward with the project. But he is entitled to up to 3 one-month extensions. There's a cost to each one of those extensions. So he has added the extra money into the escrow account as required. So we're just waiting for him to finalize his financing, which is the next step.
How much is the
Okay.
cost?
Mark, we can't do it back and forth. Now, in the contract, you said there was a cost to that. Drew, what are the costs?
$1,000.
Okay, and that's for each one?
Correct, each extension.
Got it, thank you. All right, and on the, Mr. Belhumer's comment, Mr. Imhoof's comment, any feedback from up here? Okay.
Mr. Martin, I did have an opportunity to look at Commissioner Belhumer's video of that water that was rushing through. And I was just curious to see, can we look to address that in our future plans, or as far as putting like some sort of curvature, berm or anything like that down there to maybe help prevent that
Absolutely.
water?
I think the one that he showed was actually done not by the city, but by a private residence. And to the best of my knowledge, the water that's running down 15th Street down 15th Street is run that way. So I'm just kind of curious why it hasn't been addressed by that property owner the way the other property owners address it to protect his property.
Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham, do you have anything?
I think Rick's talking about the alleyway, not a driveway. He's talking about the alleyway between Central and Daytona.
Correct, but the comment was that he'd like a berm like that. That berm was on public property on 17th Street.
The picture that he showed us was, but the alley isn't. That's what he's referring to.
I'm not sure why the property owner on South 15th Street hasn't taken action on his own to address that.
City owns that,
City doesn't own where the property flows onto his property.
the alleyway.
Correct,
City owns that.
correct. But what proactive protection has a property owner taken to protect his property? The city hasn't done anything to exacerbate the problem. It's always been that way.
I know you mentioned there was like, gonna be other phases of these curbs and berms and stuff like that. Is this area that Mr. Bellinger was talking about, is that a consideration for another phase?
Absolutely. I think Mr. Freeman commented that he's starting at the south end and is working his way north. So that will definitely be addressed.
Well, like Rick was saying, the ones up on Central that are closer to the top, there's no problem with those. They're on the list. They don't need to be on the list. They should be the last ones to get done.
Okay.
And none of the Miami curve is going to go in until the swales where all the water is going to be diverted to, it's going to be happening at the same time or first, is what we voted on last
Correct.
week before last.
That's the plan moving forward. That we're going to slow walk the Miami curbs until we get the swales to accept the water from the Miami curbs. That was the direction that was provided.
But a homeowner wouldn't put a hump in the alleyway entrance on the city right away.
I'm not saying on the alleyway. I'm saying at the back side of the property. If your property is flooding, are you going to take proactive measures to protect your property from flooding?
Well, the water shouldn't be going down the alley to begin with. That's the point he's making, is the way I believe.
I guess the point is the water's been going down that alley for decades.
Well, that doesn't make it any better.
Okay, but I guess why hasn't the property owner taken proactive measures to protect his property?
I don't know.
Would it be worth having, potentially like the city engineer and roads and streets look to see if that alley if there's anything unusual about it that could be a quick, easy, temporary style repair?
Sure.
Yeah, because I'm not familiar with that exact location, and maybe something is going on that, you know, there's.
I have not seen this video that's been purportedly shown to you guys.
Yeah, so.
I don't know if the city engineer has seen it either.
So that'd be helpful. Rick, if you could send that to everybody, that would be good. Send it to our emails, and we can have like city engineer, roads and streets take a look at that alley, because what it sounds like is we got a citizen going, hey, I have a potential problem with the alley. Can you guys look at it? And I think, you know, we can send our folks out there to see if there's anything going on that could be improved, or, you know, something that's an easy fix. Because there could be something going on in that area that we would need to take a look at. I don't know. Okay. All right, so let's go to the other public comment. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I noticed that you recommended a berm for this property possibly, but with the strong northeast winds, I would think with the rains being driven in, he's still going to have water pooling on the other side of that berm, possibly still getting into his house. So besides looking at Mr. Bellhumer's property, do we have other properties that we're aware of that suffer from the same runoff from the alley runaways, or no?
I'm not aware of. I haven't been.
Thank you.
Yeah, just for clarity, I want to make sure that when we give direction to staff, we're looking at the alley, not layouts of people's properties or anything like that. I just want to make sure that, again, this goes back to the comments I've always made. If we have a piece of infrastructure that is attached to the city, if the city owns it, then it needs to work correctly. And if the alley has some type of divots or, elevation changes that we need to correct, in good faith, then we can do that. But as far as like specific properties or runoff from other neighbors, that's all things that they got to take care of. But the alley needs to work like an alley's supposed to, is kind of my point. We can send them out there to look at it. Any other comments on that one? Okay, Corvette Club. So we have a request to do an amendment from what was agreed on March 26th. First, I'm going to go with city manager. City manager, have you and Lance looked at both the original layout and the new one, and do you guys have opinions on it? Because y'all are safety.
Well, I think, Chief Blanchett made the comment that there are some safety concerns. If you are having vehicles moving, and vehicles moving that are not part of the show amongst vehicles that are part of the show. That was one concern that was expressed at the meeting by Chief Blanchett. But otherwise, the only discussion we had was related to the fact that you guys had originally adopted the street closure plan for Central between 2nd and 3rd, and the one block of Central from the east side of City Hall to the west side of City Hall.
Right. Now, was there any thoughts on this revised one? Is this easier or more difficult than the original, or anything like that? Have y'all been able to review it?
I think we reviewed it as part of the discussion that you guys had here at the City Commission, but there were no other actions based upon the fact that your direction was only limit the closures to those two. We could have worked with traffic, but your actions were to limit the closures to those portions of 2nd Street and South Central.
Okay. I just want to get that piece of information before we have any discussion. Anybody have thoughts on this request from the Corvette Club to amend the agreement? Mayor?
This looks very similar to the original plan, and keeping 4th Street open, but there's a barricade there to be removed at 10. It does not make sense to me. Again, as we all said before, I'm not thrilled with closing any more additional roads.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Mr. Santori, see your hand on the mic.
I did speak to a couple of the businesses, and they seem to be neutral on it. They're not sure how this is going to affect them, and even though it is a Sunday, we do have Oktoberfest coming that following weekend. So there's going to be tourists in town, and these road closures could mean significant, losses to their business. But on the other side of this, I prefer the road to be closed in front of the hotel still, just because of the pedestrian safety. And I know the current plan shows basically one closure in front of Barnhill and between Barnhill and City Hall. I would say if we're looking to only close one road, is to shift that to the north and to close it in front of the hotel. And look at it, and I'm hoping he can make this work, and if he can, and they can support the businesses, and next year we can revisit it. But I just hope we can, they can make it work what we're offering them.
Okay. Commissioner Spry?
Yeah, I think, and in looking at the minutes from the last meeting, we delegated the movement of traffic plan to the city manager and to the police chief at their discretion to do what needs to be done in their view, and I think that should remain the case.
Right. We did have significant limitations on that.
Okay.
So it wasn't. Yeah, we kind of dictated you can move things minor, but as far as closures go, we limited, both the assistant chief and city manager on that.
All right. Well, then that's the way it should be, in my view. And I know there was discussion about business owners supporting closures and supporting the event, which is fine. But I know for the block next to City Hall or to the other side of the museum, which I happen to occupy the bottom floor, my concern is that is a condo building with residents. Other than my law office and the ice cream shop, the rest of it are residences. There's 14 condos in there. And so there are residents who will be coming and going through the day, whether it's Sunday or any day. And so just on behalf of the owner of that property, we need to keep that into account. Thank you.
Okay. Anything from this side of the room? When I look at this, I'm just now seeing this, but, so if when I look at South Second, which runs alongside Compass, that's a one-way street. So if you put, parking barriers a partial bit down the street, you just close the street. My concern is there's a lot of businesses on that street, and that's a one-way street, so you will not be able to get to that street at all during any of the time where that is closed. And I worry about that. So you got real estate offices, you got ice cream, and you got all kinds of businesses there. That I'm just seeing that, but I know on like South Third, that is a two-way street, so that makes things easier. I would say probably my largest concerns I see is for South Second, because that is a significant number of businesses on that street, and it's one way. So if you don't, like for instance, Commissioner Santori, your point, if let's say the road in front of Compass is closed, then I don't see any way for people to get to South Second. What you got?
Yeah, just say they did enter through Second, they would have to go through the parking lot, it appears, but it can be accessed through Central, but we need to make sure, if we're okay with this road closure there, that they're still able to make a left onto South Second. So the barricade would be, yeah, but what if we shift that, so instead of closing here, we shift the road closure to here instead, and then it can still be accessed from here.
So allow, instead of at Third Street, that closure, allow, we'll just say city manager to have, if he decides he wants to move that to South Second?
Yeah, so it would just be, the road closure would be South Second if you're coming from the north, only until you get to where the hotel parking ends, basically, on the right. So if you had to access it from the south, you would access it from South Central. So basically, if you turned right here, you'd be able to make a left. All we have to do is leave just enough lane for cars to get through.
Yeah, I guess, and this would be, my comment would be for, like city managers, is in this model, I would think I'd be okay with having enough leeway as long as people can get to South Second on, the block in between Central and Daytona. You have a gym there, you got all kinds of stuff. That all open on Sunday, probably during this time, that vehicles will need to get to, because they cannot head, what is that, that's east on that road at all. So there has to be a way for folks to do that. I'm not a traffic engineer, but I think that's within the motion that we gave you, that's in that area that you can have, because that would be open, it's not a closure, at least making sure cars can get down that road.
I guess the way it was worded is the commission closed that portion of South Second right behind you and the portion of South Central right behind me. And I was not allowed to divert from that. And that's what the Corvette Club wanted me to do, to overrule you and open streets. So I need the specific direction from you as to what streets, because otherwise they'll come to me and ask me again. Well, you control the maintenance of traffic, so you can pick and choose what streets are open, what streets are closed, that's why I need the direction from you. What
Right.
streets do you want open, what streets do you want closed?
Well, working off of consensus so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm hearing is there's not a consensus to make changes to the original plan that we worked on. Is that what I'm hearing? Do we have, is there any areas that need to be considered, for instance, outside of the restrictions we put on there? Mayor?
If I recall properly, we had decided keeping South Central between Second and Third up to South Second at the driveway open for pedestrian traffic. We had a one lane coming down South Central heading south that could turn right onto South 2nd Street. So that kept that street flowing, but we had it closed back to the original First Friday design. So this whole corner was pedestrian friendly between the park and this side. And that from my recollection, that was the leeway that we gave Assistant Chief and City Manager, with the exception of keeping traffic flowing, but make it safe for pedestrians. I still see that as the safest choice,
Okay.
in my opinion.
I as well am very partial to the original First Friday model. The one we had back when vendors were set up right here, you know, and how that worked. It was a large event, had a lot of people, had a lot of stuff, and it still got everybody to where they needed to be. So what I'm hearing as far as consensus is no changes to the model, just First Friday, the original First Friday direction. Anything otherwise? All right, so City Manager, you got your direction on that. All right.
Chairman, can I speak?
Well, we closed the issue. Is there anything that is like a subject matter that we would need to know on this? Yeah, I'll entertain it. You can come up. Yeah, and if there's anything else we need to consider, you can tell us.
Greg Norton again up. We've discussed safety issues back and forth and even looked up Florida statute about jaywalking and stuff. And we will withdraw our event application because we're just afraid of traffic and people. We forgot about adding in golf carts and electric vehicles to this mix too. So Penny will officially withdraw our special event application. You have a lot of good people working for you, and I thank them for their efforts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, any other discussion on public comment? None? All right. We'll move on to consent agenda. Consent agenda is approved regular meeting minutes of March 26, 2026. Any questions on the minutes? Look for motion.
Make a motion, we approve the regular meeting minutes of March 26, 2026.
I'll second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimous. We'll go on to general business. We have a presentation from Mr. Bob Snyder on Centennial interviews. Is Sheila here as well? Or is this you?
No, Sheila is traveling.
It's good to see you. It's been a while.
Thank you, Commissioner. Sure has. And I'm glad I'm not here to give you updates on COVID. So, yeah. Bob Snyder, proud president of the Rotary Club of Flagler Beach. A little over a year ago, Mayor Patty King was a guest speaker at our breakfast meetings that we have every Thursday at Santa Maria del Mar Catholic Church's Parish Hall. And when she was done, she did a great presentation, and I asked her, what can we do for the city? What needs assistance? And she said, well, we're about to celebrate our 100th birthday, the centennial, so why don't you all consider doing a couple of projects? So Project 1, right, occurred April 16th after the opening at the museum. 400 plus people went across the A1A, and we coordinated the formation of the number 100 north of the pier. And it was videotaped and photos taken by drones, and some of those photos even made it on T-shirts that have been selling in the community. So I brainstormed with the club, and the second project was a collaboration between the city. Thank you, Dale, for your support. Flagler Broadcasting, David Ayers and his team. Of course, our Rotary Club and the museum. And so I brainstormed with David Ayers, and he says, Bob, storytelling is the foundational way we've communicated for thousands and thousands of years as a population. He says, why don't you round up some storytellers, people who have either were born and raised in Flagler Beach, lived here a long time, or just know about the history of our beautiful city. So I interviewed at the radio station 6 storytellers, Mayor Patty King and Robbie Creel, interviewed them. Rick Bellhumer, thank you, Rick, for your support. B.B. Moody, grandson of George Moody, one of the founding fathers and developers of our city, now known as Flagler Beach. And then 2 barbers, Barbara Tidwell, who you may know, and Barbara Rebels. Both of them were born and raised here on the island. And so the interviews lasted about 20 to 30 minutes. So what David and his team did is they took 1-minute snippets of each interview and got pictures from the interviewees as well as from the museum. So whatever topic it was that they were talking about, we have video to go along with it. So it's only 6 minutes in length. And Penny, would you be so kind as to play this?
I fell in love with it, and soon after my father got home, he did some research and started buying a piece of property. And by the time he retired in 1984, he had to have Professor Reynolds. I came down in 04, already had a job lined up. But in the years in between, my kids made a lot of trips down, at least twice. I love being in the ocean and the surf and the body surfing mostly. I've never had aspirations of following my father's footsteps as a future commissioner. I just started and started going to all meetings.
This is Bob Snyder with Flagler Beach Rotary Club. Keep listening for more. Flagler Beach Centennial, snapshots in time. Mayor of Flagler Beach, Patty King, Executive Director of Flagler Beach Historic Museum. Our history is about people, and our community has been faced with challenges, and every time the people come back stronger than before. Matthew, in 2016, what came from that tragedy was the birth of Flagler Strong. To me, that's the epitome of our community. I'm going to take it back to 1944, the Cuban Florida hurricane. 330 feet of pier was September 10th, 1960. Hurricane Donna, off 80 feet. 1964, Hurricane Dora took 416 feet. Our congressman at that time, Billy Matthews, would not rebuild for us, but they did rebuild. Our community had to fund it. Our current year was devastated in 2022. We've been closed now 3 years, and we are just now starting construction. This is Bob Snyder, Flagler Beach Rotary Club. Keep listening for more. Flagler Beach Centennial, snapshots in time.
Flagler Beach, 100 years ago.
George Moody, my grandfather, started developing Flagler Beach, at that time, Ocean City. Doing turpentine business here in Manel, but state of Florida was willing to give out 160 acres to develop, to give people where they could stay in a hotel and come to Home Street, buy a lot to him and a few other guys staying aside. Charles Lindbergh landed on the strip of where Flagler Avenue is now. I'd say the school probably to a 3/4 mile to the south. It was flat. You still had both sides of Flagler Avenue that are now occupied homes, which we had that. It was flat grass too.
Bob Snyder with Flagler Beach Rotary Club. Keep listening for more. Flagler Beach Centennial, snapshots in time. Retired Chief of Flagler Beach Fire Department and President of the Historic Museum of Flagler Beach, Robbie Creel.
Charles Lindbergh was flying from Miami to New York in November 1971. He came to see in our little grass airstrip on part of what is now South Daytona and South Flagler Avenue. My earliest memory had a beach buggy that was made of Model A4. We go surfing for that. That would have been 1953, 1954, Lehigh, Portland. And then in 1965, the community took a big hit. George Moody started the casino in 1916 that had a half-court basketball all around the outside of the changing rooms for people to get to the city. The only way to get over it was a little two-car ferry. Wasn't until 1920 that we got a turnstile bridge.
This is Bob Snyder with Flagler Beach Rotary Club. Keep listening for more. Flagler Beach Centennial, snapshots in time.
Flagler Beach community leader and lifelong resident, Barbara Reynolds.
Just a little ways down John Anderson, there's a chicken farm, and when we go up to Gage Farm, I got to go collect the eggs. They had the corduroy road where they laid down on the tree, and put dirt over the top of it, because it was all swampy. I couldn't get away with anything because not only was my father always sitting there watching the clock, my grandfather George owns the town. He knew if I got near that pool hall, my dad was a builder, and I packed a lot and burned everything I did. He worked on the pier building after the Spanish style when it was torn down, worked on the church, pastor, like the beach mountains. He did a lot of large farm houses, a lot of construction around the community.
This is Bob Snyder with Flagler Beach Rotary Club. Keep listening for more. Flagler Beach Centennial, snapshots in time.
Celebrating 100 years of Flagler Beach with Flagler Beach resident Barbara Tidwell.
Things began to change when the war broke out. We could hear the bombs going off. Planes were really trying to keep the enemy off the shore. I don't remember being afraid. I just remember doing what they told us to do. I wanted the grandchildren to know that people lived differently then. I think our first grade in 1940, they took 2 grades in one room, walking to Flagler Beach School, which was about 2 miles from where we lived. There was no fence wall. Cows were in the middle of the road. My brother and I were afraid to go through the cows. Big Bull was called Roosevelt, but Roosevelt was a president. We couldn't go back home. We couldn't go through the cows, so we darted over to the canal line and went on to Flagler Beach School, which is now the Wickline Center.
This is Bob Snyder with Flagler Beach Rotary Club. Keep listening for more. Flagler Beach Centennial, snapshots in time.
And I apologize that you had to listen to me 6 different times. Sorry about that. But keep in mind, these were snippets, little vignettes that were heard on all 4 radio stations for several months, mainly in the fall of 2025. So, the entirety of the interviews of the 6 storytellers is on YouTube. And I'm going to send a link to that to Patty and Mayor King when I get home. But it's available on YouTube. And what Sheila Piloff is going to do, because this is 2.5, 3 hours worth of content, she is going to arrange at the museum for the museum to be the home of these interviews for years and years to come. For people to listen to. You know, what she has envisioning is, of course, a monitor, TV monitor with headphones, so that it can be playing over and over again via a loop system, so that it has a place to be alive and well beyond all of us for years to come. So, Flagler Broadcasting, thank you so much. Mayor King, thank you. At the museum, Dale, thank you for your support. And of course, we're real proud of our Rotary Club of Flagler Beach. So thank you.
Bobby Gillen is our treasurer. He's here with me tonight. Real active rotator.
Thank you, Bob. Those turned out really, really nice. I mean, they're well done. Does Vern at our local station have a copy of those? Because I don't think I've heard them being played.
I don't know if Vern does, but I know.
If you can just talk in the mic.
I can certainly make them. I will make this available to Vern so that he can use them. I'm sure he would appreciate it. But yeah, on all 4 stations, it was heard for quite a few months. As I said, mainly in the fall.
Yeah, it'd be great to get audio files to Vern. I'd look forward to hearing that. If maybe I just missed it, I'm an avid listener, so it would be good to have that thing playing.
All right, yeah. So yeah, I'll send the YouTube link to Mayor King, and then she can send it out to all of you so that you can watch it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any comments or questions for Mr. Snyder? All right, move on to, we're getting an update from our representative to the BPAC of Lucia Flagler, Mr. Ed Fenley.
Thank you,
Good evening, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thanks to all of you for the opportunity to report to you about street safety in Flagler Beach. And I'm grateful for your having me serve as a representative to the TPO BPAC, to use the acronym, along with our neighbor and friend Tim Davis. And we've also got the A-team here. Commissioner Sherman represents us on the other, the main body there, along with transportation professional, ringer, and neighbor and friend of ours, Paul McKitka, and then our friend...
pull your mic a little closer.
Yeah,
so
sorry.
the screen picks you up.
Yeah, sorry. Along with Mr. Bellhumer. So that's your team on the TPO, which is an important decision-making body for the use of federal and state and other funds for transportation and transportation safety. So 3 things today. First, I want to remind us, and it's really great building on the stories to celebrate the fact that Flagler Beach is a historic, traditionally designed, walkable small town. That is gold, slowing down traffic, making our streets more walkable as they were designed to be, and increasing golf cart access. That plays to our history, it plays to our strengths. Second, thank you. I've been coming here for a number of years, and in some forms, kind of saying the same thing, urging safety and greater walkability, and keeping everybody alive. And you've really ushered in some fantastic changes in recent years, and we're moving in the right direction. So I want to thank you all for that, commissioners, Mr. Martin, and Chief Blanchette. So great progress. Let's keep it rolling. And that's the third point, is we still have a lot of major challenges. And I want to highlight that and urge you to continue to take action, notably making it safer on the far northern and southern ends of State Route A1A, and then also Moody Boulevard. And I was talking with my friend B.B. Moody recently just about this. And again, turning Moody Boulevard all the way from Culver Lane to the Saltwater into a safer route that's more accessible for everybody. So Flagler Beach, we have small blocks, we have alleys. It allows for a network of narrow streets. Narrow is good. Multiple streets is good because it disperses traffic. It maximizes access. Small blocks and narrow two-way streets, means lower speeds. That's fantastic. We have also a classic small town mix of land uses. Wherever you are in Flagler Beach, you're close to restaurants, you're close to the beach, you're close to parks, you're close to churches, you're close to shops, homes, and amenities. This is fantastic. So by contrast, Palm Coast, I hate to diss Palm Coast. I married into Palm Coast. My wife's family is from there, but it's very different. And I want to contrast that to celebrate us. They have wide, high-speed roads. They have big surface parking lots. They have single-use zoning. For the most part, in Palm Coast, people have to drive. And those high-speed roads, the big intersections, demonstrably increase crash risks and the severity of crashes. If you want a big surface parking lot, go to Walmart in Palm Coast. If you want a fun and funky and walkable beach town, come here. That's our strength. You have played to our strength. You've made our streets safer and more walkable. We have a uniform 20-mile-an-hour speed limit. That's awesome. It's crucial because most of our streets are shared spaces. No matter what we're doing, we're generally sharing the same 20 feet of pavement. And keeping those speeds down keeps them accessible and safe for everybody. Over the last 6 years, you've also worked with FDOT to do some pretty major changes on state roads. It's a big deal from South 22nd Street all the way to the near north side. A1A now has safer designs, 25-mile-an-hour designs and 25-mile-an-hour speed limits. That means everybody has a better chance of getting home for dinner. It's good for our quality of life. It's good for our local businesses when people slow down and enjoy the view. we got more to do. So southern and northern ends of A1A, and I know this is on the radar for some of you, those speeds remain dangerously and inappropriately high. It's not compatible with our land use and our amenities. It's also not even compatible with the adjoining areas in Beverly Beach and south of the city now. So it makes it another oddity. So I know you're thinking about that. Please continue to do so. And then there's Moody. Okay, that's our primary gateway. It's the biggest remaining threat to our safety. It's also the biggest potential area for improvement. Its design should say, beginning at Colbert and progressively, you're no longer in Palm Coast. That street design should progressively say, you are entering a historic, fun, and walkable beach town. The design should say, and tell drivers, slow down, stop for a while, have some fun, spend some money. And right now, the design and operation of State Route 100, Moody Boulevard, from Colbert Lane to the Saltwater, it says the opposite. It says, go fast. Makes no sense because you end in the saltwater. So it needs to change. The good news is that FDOT has changed. Today's Florida Department of Transportation, in particular District 5, which operates here, they're focused on safety. They really are. It's different from the FDOT that inflicted on us in the 1990s the current high-speed version of Moody Boulevard, including the bridge, which was rebuilt in the 90s. So, for example, take a look at what FDOT is doing just north and south of us. Take a look at A1A in Beverly Beach. Take a look at A1A now in Ormond Beach and much of Daytona Beach north of International Speedway Boulevard, ISB. Take a look at ISB itself, Daytona Beach side, and Granada Boulevard in Ormond. Those are all FDOT improvements that have lowered design speeds. They have used the state-approved toolkit of modern design and operational techniques to reduce crash risks. And what those road designs have done is to give people, whether they live there or are visiting, a fighting chance of being able to walk across that street or walk along those streets without dying. Okay, and just to do a little sidebar, I want to remind us, sadly, that as of 2022, there was about 410 metropolitan statistical areas in the United States. The single most deadly for people walking and cycling, sadly, was the two-county area of Volusia and Flagler County. Okay, so that's our history. Was bad, but again, to FDOT's credit, to your credit, you're working to change that, and it has happened. So if FDOT can do it there, they can do it here, okay? So let's keep that dialogue going. Let's keep the TPO project requests going. We've got a few in the hopper, and we've also got some other good stuff in the hopper. I see the display for the mobility plan coming up, so this is great. So, and then finally, just one admonition, or maybe encouragement, just to say, as local leaders, I was an elected official at one point in another lifetime, so I have some understanding of sitting in that sort of a position. As local leaders, when it comes to street safety issues, I urge you to remain focused on goals, not get in the weed of designs. So goals might include, and indeed you have articulated these at times, reducing crash risks, maintaining traffic flow at slower speeds, increasing golf cart access, supporting local businesses, maximizing on-street parking, adding greenery and landscaping. Those are all examples of potential goals you could continue to articulate or articulate. And there may be others. But I would encourage you, please don't try to be professional street designers. Leave that to engineers like our friend Paul Makitka, the engineers, especially the newer generation at FDOT. If you tell them your goals, they can give you design options that can help meet those goals, and then you can evaluate the options in terms of the goals. And there will be trade-offs, but you can look at that. It's also good to keep it at the goal level because I promise you people will yell at you less. Trust me on that. So we've made great progress. Thank you for that. We've played to our strengths by slowing down traffic and making us more walkable, bikeable, and golf cartable. So let's keep it going. Thank you.
Any questions for Mr. Finley while he's up?
It's more of just a quick plug to thank you for all that you do, and Mr. McKitka, and also Commissioner Bellhumeur. And I want to give a little credit to my tag team partner over here, who's my alternate on the TPO board as well. So Commissioner Santori actually sat in for me at this last one. But I'm looking forward to working with you again, and I know we've had some great conversations. So you know, I'm with you, and you know, you mentioned some great points. I think, you know, Mr. Martin, again, I know, again, bringing those forward-thinking ideas of looking at that stretch of A1A down there in Volusia County, they've really done some great improvements down there. But I think to Commissioner Cooley's point, last week we were talking just exactly about that on the northern end of town, where you go from 45, and then you're going to slow down again. I mean, that's just poor ingenuity. And then again, I know you and I have discussed it. I've said this many times off the dais. You know, it still haunts me. My first week on this board, that young lady was killed down there at Gamble Rogers, and we still haven't done anything. And, you know, I know these are things that, you know, we can stress and, you know, continue to push forward. And I know Mr. Martin has a really good working relationship with FDOT. And, again, thank you guys for all that you do. But, Mr. Chairman, that's all I had. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Finley? I got some. How you sit in all these meetings, what's the best route forward for the Gateway, you know, Moody, and also other problem areas that we have in the city? For instance, Beverly Beach was able to get the entire stretch of Beverly Beach speed reduced, which doesn't have that many crossings, surprisingly. You know, you have homes on both sides of the street, and there's not really a lot of places for them to go. We have, on North Side, walkovers, beach walkovers at every single block, and people actively crossing them, and our speed limit's higher. It doesn't make any sense. What's the best route forward to expedite fixes for that?
Everything. So what's interesting is that Beverly Beach and the improvements that were made more recently in Volusia County used different pots of money and had different programmatic aspects. And I say that not that we need to get into the weeds, but I think the point is that because there's various opportunities, including self-initiated and self-funded stuff from District 5 FDOT, which is what happened in Volusia County, you know, we need Commissioner Sherman, we need Commissioner Santori, we need Mr. Martin, we need me, we need Paul McKitka. All of us should look for opportunities, and that includes at the TPO, which we're doing through formal project submissions, but also just by talking to people, just talking to FDOT staff. And again, to go back to the Volusia County projects, that was done out of their maintenance money. It wasn't a TPO project. So they've made these multi-mile changes, and they did it cost effectively because it came up on the maintenance cycle. So it was really a wonderful thing, both from a financial perspective, because it was really cost effective. They were going to repave and restripe anyway, but they did it in a way that made it much more modern and much better. But again, that wasn't a TPO project. And so that's the sort of thing where our relationships with FDOT staff, just to say, hey, why is it this high-speed zone at the beginning end of our counties? It makes no sense. How can we get that done? That'll help. But also, you know, Mr. Martin and you putting in the formal TPO project submissions, which we have done for Moody in part. You know, we haven't submitted proposals, but we have submitted a planning request. So again, I'd say everything, all of us, and even just the hallway conversations with anybody we can find at FDOT is a good thing.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Finley while he's up? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions for City Manager on this topic?
Mr. Chairman, I was going to have it in my City Manager report, but I am scheduled to build upon the TPO projects. We did make reference to the Moody Boulevard one, which we applied in 25. This year we applied for what we referred to as the Gateway Promenade Phase 2. Phase 1 was actually, that was what created the boardwalk, or at least the ends of the boardwalks, the mini A-frames at both ends. We did submit an application this year to extend that to 9th Street to tie into the potential Sun Trail, but then also to replace the existing surface laid boardwalk from the pier south to 8th Street. And I will be attending the meeting next week, the BPAC Project Review Subcommittee agenda that scores the projects. So we are on the list to be scored. There were 6 applications for feasibility studies, so that's next Tuesday that I'll be down in Daytona to advocate for our gateway project at the south end of the boardwalk.
Okay, thank you. And I guess just a question for you, pick your brain. You've been a city manager a long time in different areas and worked with municipalities. We've been talking about north side speed limit, south side speed limit, which is what you're talking about, and also Gateway, which is the bridge funneling cars into a highly congested area at 45 miles an hour. We've been talking about this for years. How can we move the needle on this to where we can get some traction on some of these?
I think Mr. Fenley pointed out that I think we need to engage the younger crowd at FDOT, and that's through people like Mr. Fenley, Mr. McKitka, because when we raise the issue about golf carts across the bridge, which you all know that I'm working on trying to work with FDOT to get golf carts across the bridge, one of their responses, and I think it's almost a reflexive response that Mr. Fenley may be able to comment on, is that they go by the 80th percentile of speed. And in their mind, people traveling across the bridge, to confirm what Mr. Fenley said, is over 50 miles an hour. It's 51 miles an hour is the 80th percentile of the speeds people cross the bridge at. So FDOT uses that as an excuse, a rationale, not excuse, that's a little too negative. They use that as rationale that you can't slow the traffic down because the speed's too high. And I try to push back and say, well, let's put signs up that drop the speed to 35 or 45. I mean, yes, would it be nice to get the speeds from John Anderson and Roberts Road down to 35 to cross the bridge and 25 once you get to Flagler? So I think we just keep fighting that fight, putting out projects. You know, we have the charrette, we've talked about it. This is what we proposed, or this community put forward 20 years ago, and we haven't been able to move forward on it. And I think the help that you've been giving, supporting the TPO projects, your role on the TPO, active role on the TPO boards, is helping at least start to move the needle in the right direction. But it'll take some time, because, yeah, our society's built around the cars, and changes to that bridge are not going to be easy, but it could be the most beneficial change to change the character of this community back to what it should be.
Well, and it's just almost hard to believe that that's I can completely see them doing it, but it's hard to believe that that would be a response. It's why do people drive 50, 55 on the bridge? It's because y'all designed it for that. When you get out on the bridge, it looks and feels like a highway. It's wide lanes, wide shoulders, hammer down. And I just, you tighten that up and you start changing the barriers and tightening the lanes, and you put some traffic calming on the bridge, then that average speed limit drops. But it won't drop unless you change the design.
I'll forward the email to you where that comment was made and share it. Now, Mr. Davis, who also sits on our Parks Committee, he commented on the efforts about the golf carts across the bridge, he says, find people that will send letters of support or just email messages to FDOT as members of the general public, whether they're a walker, a cyclist, or a golf cart enthusiast, advocating on the projects that we're doing. And so what I was going to bring up the golf cart is I will have Miss O'Flaherty put a Facebook post out on the city's Facebook site and say, don't send the comments to FDOT. Go ahead and send them to us, and we'll package them, and we'll get them to the right people in FDOT, where you're supporting golf carts across the bridge, you're supporting slower speeds on the bridge, and things like that. So we'll start trying to do more of the public engagement and being the filter to, or the funnel to get those staff done.
I would have no doubt if you made a social media post and had like a picture of a golf cart and said, "Want to drive this thing across the bridge? Just email us here. You're going to get hits." That would probably generate a little bit of activity and buzz. All right, any other comments before we move on? I'll move on to item C, Resolution 2026-27. Drew?
Resolution 2026-27, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, approving Amendment Number 2 to the Professional Services Contract with Mead & Hunt, Inc. for the Water Main River Crossing Upland Portion, City Project 636, to add bidding assistance services to the original scope of work and authorizing and executing the amendment.
All right, City Manager, if you can.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This project was actually part of our 2 priority legislative requests for 2 years. Unfortunately, we never got them funded, but since we said it was a critical project, we said we better move forward on it if it's a critical project. So this is the first phase, and it was originally in 2 phases. Phase 1 was to move build a water line north on Lambert. The original plan actually had it going all the way to the north end of Lambert and crossing the intercoastal there. We've since revised that plan. We're only going as far north as 10th Street. And then so that's what we refer to as the upland portion. Once we build that main, then we will cross the intercoastal and connect to the water main on the island. That will provide a second redundant line, because right now we only have the one distribution line that crosses in the vicinity of the bridge. So the original plan for this was not to move forward this year with it. But we have gone far enough forward with it that's why we've decided to request permission to move forward with the change order to have Mead Hunt assist us with bid assistance and get that out and get that project ready to go.
All right, questions? Commissioner Cunningham.
Didn't the bid go out this morning?
I'd have to find out. I don't know if it. Okay.
Weren't they asking for more money to put it out to bid? That's kind of where I was going.
No, they would do the pre-bid meeting. They would do the totaling and reviewing of the proposals that were received and provide a recommendation for those. They would also propose or draft any addendums that are needed.
I know they put the bid out, or you put the bid out this morning at 10:10.
So I posted it on Demand Star. I loaded that up the other day to drop this morning at 6 a.m. and I meant to do that yesterday on our website, but got caught up with other stuff, so it went out. It did drop today on our website at 10:10. It's been distributed to 679 vendors on Demand Star, and I can check to see how many look at it on our webpage, but often I find it's a lot of staff. I get more traction from the Demand Star.
Is it standard process to have the pre-bid meeting 2 business days after it goes out to contractors to review and make a list of questions they might have for the pre-bid meeting?
The pre-bid
Next Tuesday.
is on the 14th.
Mm-hmm. 2 business days. Can't count today, tomorrow, and Monday. That may be why we don't have very many bidders. That's not very long.
It's a non-mandatory pre-bid meeting. I'm not sure of the cutoff for the question dates. I've already received from 4 different vendors questions asking if there's an engineer's estimate, asking is the pre-bid meeting mandatory. One other asked if it was gonna be broadcast by Zoom on Teams. So I've just been responding to those.
That's just pretty quick, is all I'm saying.
I don't think the question period closes the day that the pre-bid meeting is. So I think
The pre-bid meeting on site or in here?
in this room.
Okay.
Pardon me.
Any other questions or comments about this resolution? The questions I had in city manager, I guess if you could just kind of take myself and just the general public so we understand this. So we're adding bidding assistance services, and I guess it's a two-part question. It's why wouldn't that have been included on the initial part, but then what is the purpose of bidding assistance services? Is this not something staff can do? I'm not an expert in this area, so if you can give me kind of the layman's, view of like what and why on this.
Okay, and I can have Mr. Freeman offer some additional insight, but the original plan, it wasn't included, we were not planning to go out for bids this calendar year, or this fiscal year. So that's why it wasn't included in the original plan. So that's why we've been able to figure out that we can move forward with the bidding, and that'll allow us to move forward with construction earlier than planned, perhaps as early as this fiscal year, for which some of the money is budgeted for. And then for the other part was about the bidding assistance. Yeah, it's usually just the staff capacity and the volume or the technicality of the bidding documents, the contractual documents.
Is this one too big for us as a staff?
Yes, a project this size would be a little beyond what staff could handle in-house, so we have Mead & Hunt's assistance on this one.
Got it. And the reason why I wasn't included on the front side was because of time. We didn't think it was going to happen this year or something.
We originally, when we put this project out for design, we originally were looking to have this as a fiscal year 26-27 construction project. However, we deemed it more critical, so we moved it up.
Got it. Yeah, when it just seems like whenever we do projects, there's a lot of amendments, and I always try to understand why the changes when we get them in front of us. Is it a process improvement thing we need to look at, or what the reason was? All right, any other questions or comments on this resolution? I'll look for a motion before public comment.
Make a motion to approve resolution 26-27.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Bring it back up here. Any other final comments? Benny, if you can call the roll.
Commissioner Santori,
Yes to motion?
Commissioner Spradley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Chair Cooley.
Yes, the motion. Motion passes unanimous. Resolution 2026-09. Drew?
Resolution 2026-09, a resolution accepting a proposal from S.C. Klein Construction, Inc. for labor, equipment, and materials to perform the Venice Park Swale Maintenance Project, authorizing the execution of the contract and payment therefor, and setting forth an effective date.
All right, City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a project to restore the Venice Park subdivision, which for those not familiar is the canal area off of Moody Lane, Lehigh, Palmetto, Avalon, that area. The plans, the original plans were dated December of 2009. They're in your packet. So we solicited proposals for this project and recommend that the contract be awarded to S.E. Klein Construction.
So this has been a needed project since '09.
It was done, to the best of my knowledge, it was done in '09, and then, as has been commonly referred to, maintenance was not done over the years since the project was done, but we do have these records so that this project will restore that to back the '09 standards that were originally built, and then we, city staff, will do a better job of maintaining going forward once these designs are re-implemented.
Got it. And is this part of that low-hanging fruit that was in that study? One of the first call-outs?
I believe this was part of the McKimmon Creed project list, stormwater list.
Okay. All right, comments or questions? Mr. Santori?
Yeah, so I checked the McKim Creed list, and it seems that part of this project is rated at number 5, and then the rest of the project is like 20 through 25. So it's pretty spread out. And so my concern is by doing this project, does that need to be redone in 5 years when we do the first part of it? And also, it again kind of goes back to this, what we talked about at the goal setting, like should we have a workshop and discuss how we want to prioritize these things? Because, and also, is this coming out of the maintenance fund or the capital improvements?
It comes out of the stormwater fund.
All right, any other questions? Mr. Sherman? Okay. Commissioner Cunningham?
Yeah. During your field evaluations, what process did you use to confirm the 3,000 linear feet of swales that need to be regraded? What was your process?
So we use GIS measuring tools.
GIS measuring tools.
Yes.
Is that as accurate as a survey with grade rods and transits?
It's fairly accurate.
We're talking inches here. You got 360 feet, 630 feet with 5.5 inch fall. I don't think GIS can pick that up.
So
The point is you need surveying. There's as-built, that's from '09. And the string is not going to work. You got to have some elevation stakes out there to go by. I mean, we do all this work without having it surveyed with elevations. And when you're talking about very little fall, I mean inches, literally inches. If you don't have it surveyed and it's accurate, you're going to be right back there doing it again, which could be very well why it's like that now. Even if the as-built that are provided have been verified and checked. Because the top elevation of those inlet structures on the side of the road, they look like they're even with the side of the road, and they should be 6 inches lower. They're high. Same thing on South Flagler. So GIS is how you verify it?
That's how we verify the length. Now, as far as depths, we're going to do as-built surveys at the completion.
Okay, I didn't see that on here anyway.
We don't have the contractor doing it. One of the reasons we don't do that is because if the contractor is getting it, they generally add probably a 30 to 40% markup on that. And if you looked at some of the bid tabs, you'll see one of the contractors had, I think, a $16,000 fee for as-built surveys. We generally work with one of our continuing contract surveyors, and they generally give us a much better price on that.
They're not going to do that beforehand, so the contractor can have something to go by? We're going to do it after?
So what they're doing is they're going to the existing inverts. They're not changing the inverts, they're just going to the existing inverts.
But you got to verify if it's accurate, if it's correct, or it's all going to be wrong. Then you got to look at what data they were using.
So when the project was originally done back in 2009, there was as-built drawings which confirmed the inverts. So what we're doing is maintenance.
Well, my point is to make sure they're accurate and have something out there for the contractor to work by. They're just going to be hoping and guessing and eyeballing. You can't eyeball inches in hundreds of feet for fall. It doesn't work that way. I've used string lines many times. I'm not down it, but that's on small stuff, not for an entire length of a road to get positive drainage flow. It won't work. So what's your plan?
So we'll pull strings from invert to invert, like I mentioned, the existing, you have culverts and trench drains, they're existing, so the inverts are already established. So what they're doing is they're going from invert to invert. A lot of the invert, the distances are 100 feet or so, or less. So they just pull the string from invert to invert, and then they follow that line.
Hold on 1 second. I don't see these as-built from Quentin Hampton being stamped either. There's a name on it, but there's no stamp.
To clarify, I don't think what's in your packet are the as-built. I think these were the original plans, which were then built back in 2009. These are not as-built. These are the plans that a contractor in 2009 built the system based upon these documents. These are not as-built. This is the site plan for the
There's
project.
Guinness Park as-built, what I have. They're not as-built, or are they?
My recollection is they are the as-built.
Okay. With no stamp. Which is what, as you know, the seal to verify it by whoever stamp is on it. Seal.
So oftentimes, I would imagine in 2009, if they use an embossed sealer, when you scanned it or made a copy, it didn't come through.
No. Negative. I would highly recommend getting your surveying done to give them something to go by and see what is there, to see if these as-built are accurate. Even the top of structures and inverts, for that matter. GIS doesn't do that. I mean, we'll do all this and spend however much it is, $100 and something thousand, and we could very well go back and be doing it again in a few years, because it's not right. Disagree?
We would do maintenance. We do annual maintenance once we get it completed. Then our in-house crews would do annual maintenance.
I'll still recommend surveying being done before the work starts.
City manager, that's, for instance, for consideration, just, we'll talk about this, that's something city staff could arrange outside of this resolution and just do it ahead of time.
If that's a direction, correct. If you approve this and, we could solicit a addendum to this contract, and if it's less than $35,000, then yes, we can approve that at the staff level.
Okay. Commissioner Spradley, do you have something?
Yeah, just in listening to the conversation, I mean, it sounds wise, what's being said by Commissioner Cunningham about doing a survey. What effect would that have on the timing of the project? And then also what sort of cost would be involved? Because depending upon the answer to those two questions, I would be also inclined to say that the survey should be done before.
Based on past experience, surveys for this would probably cost less than $5,000 as far as the time frame. That's dependent on the surveyor that we work with, but typically we've been able to get them out there within 30 days on similar things.
Thank you. Commissioner Cunningham, with that,
Yeah.
you, yeah.
I need a point of clarification. I'm in agreement with what Commissioner Spradley had mentioned, and also kind of on board with Commissioner Cunningham here. But I'm seeing something here on page 60 of the packet. Can you clarify here?
It does show that there is a survey slash as-built line here for $16,590, and this looks like this is the bid from Klein. Can you provide some clarification on that?
One of the bidders did provide that, and I thought that was DDS. Klein did not provide a line item for survey.
Okay.
Commissioner Cunningham, did you have anything else?
No.
Commissioner Santori?
I'm in favor of the survey also, but curious too, would a new survey require new plans?
No, they wouldn't. Mayor?
I've got just a dumb question. Not understanding your areas of expertise. When the project was done in 2009, and there were as-builts done, as-built / survey, at the completion of that project, then we're going to rebuild back to those specifications. How is a new survey going to change how it ended up? How would a new survey differ from those as-built / survey?
Well, one of the things that will change, and Commissioner Cunningham mentioned that. So in 2009, they used the NGVD datum, NGVD 29. Now they currently use the NAVD 88. So there's a conversion between those two, which is roughly a foot. So any of the numbers, if you're looking at an as-built now, there's going to be a foot off from what it would currently be if you got an up-to-date survey. So I mean, I don't disagree with them. I think there's no harm at all in getting a new survey.
Thank you.
Any other questions for city manager or city engineer while they're up there? Or comments? I got a comment. It's not terrible. It's not super technical, but one of the things I'm noticing a trend with all these projects that are coming forward, and what I would like is to get y'all's thoughts on maybe even getting a consensus on this. So on we'll call it the cover packet. It's what staff writes up that has the background, description, fiscal impact, and all that stuff, staff recommendation. I think there needs to be something added to these when they involve doing a task. Because there's different resolutions for different things, but when you have a task resolution like this, someone is doing something, there needs to be a planned outcome paragraph, or, and you can Scrivener what you actually want to call it, but there needs to be something in this cover sheet that says, when this is done, this is the expected result. And here's how we as a body or even staff can have your checks and balances. So when you do a project, here's your final outcome. So in this case, your planned outcome is you're going to have conveyance of water at the end of this project, move in a particular way for a particular purpose, and then when this is done, that's the final outcome. And I'll give you a perfect example of why we would need something like that. If you look at, and this predates both these gentlemen, you look at previous well projects that were done, primarily south side. We spent all this money, disrupted all this stuff, tore up everybody's yards, and we don't even know what it does at the end of the project. Did it do anything? Did it even accomplish what the intended purpose was? And I really think there needs to be something, at least in the packet, so when this is done, when this project here is done, resolution, 2026-09, somebody can go back and go, yes, this accomplished what it was intended to do. So now you have money spent, and we accomplished this, and the waters are moving out. Does that make sense? I mean, this isn't really a big change, but I think it's an important thing that needs added into the package.
Yeah, we could add that to the paragraph that says staff recommendation with, what the anticipated outcome is, because this agenda is set up software is set up, those are the standard blocks that we have. And I'm not sure whether we want to, if it's how easy it is to add another block, but we can at least in the meantime put under the staff recommendation that the expected outcome or the anticipated outcome is this, and this is how it will be measured, and we'll provide feedback on that. But we will start putting stuff like that in the staff recommendation box.
Right, because, you know, we're getting in, I'll get you right in a second here, we're getting in this new trend of, so the public is saying, look, y'all have done this project X amount of times and nothing's changed. And then we have concerns up here of, is the project going to achieve the purpose that it's set out to achieve? And there's all these different concerns that kind of bubble up, and this is especially true with stormwater, but it applies to other things too. And I think it just needs to be spelled out in the packet on record what it's going to do, so there can be a checks and balances. So, you know, we say money spent, final outcome. And also from a legal aspect, if this project didn't do what it was supposed to do, who's accountable? For instance, like those swales. We spent a ton of money on those swales years ago for absolutely nothing. I couldn't tell you what the expected outcome of those swales was. Are they supposed to hold water? Are they supposed to push it somewhere? I know what we were told when we approved it, but that's not how it went down. Commissioner Spradley?
Yeah, that's a great idea, and here's why. I will know when I leave here tonight why we voted for or against certain ordinances, resolutions. Next week I'll wake up and I'll look back and I'm like, what was the purpose of that? I'm not sure, you know, and as time marches on, you forget what it is. And since the stormwater issue particularly is going to be with us till the end of time, then it is good to be able to bounce back and see. And also in reporting, it's good for us to be able to report back to the community. I hate being asked, well, why did you approve that ordinance 6 months ago? And I look at it, I'm like, I got no idea. You know, and so to have an outcome-oriented synopsis, I think would be very helpful, not only for us as a board, but also for the community.
And I think to build on that, perhaps even go back to the beginning in the first part of the background, which is perhaps what the background is intended for, is what is the initial rationale for doing this project in the first place? Not only look at the end, like here's the expected outcome, but draw a better picture of why are we doing it in the first place.
Yeah, and I would not want to overcomplicate it, but you know, you look at what SMART objectives are and stuff like that, and you get into project management, but it needs to be called out in packet, final result, so then it can go out by anybody who had a question about this project, even including potential naysayers or folks that even voted against it. If one of us didn't like it, did it accomplish what it was supposed to do? They can go out there and see it, measure it, whatever the case is, and then you look at it right here and, okay, it did or did not.
Well, and it's like you mentioned or asked at the beginning of the discussion, is this one of the low-hanging fruit projects? I mean, I remember we had lots to talk about. Let's do the low-hanging fruit, but I forgot what the low-hanging fruit is.
Yeah, it's a lot to, and that binder,
Yeah.
you know, the binders are gigantic, so for us to try to track that down, it's tough. So having that information would help out a ton. And then also being able to measure, because I absolutely, it just crushes my soul when a citizen comes to us and says, you guys have done that project already. And then it just, how do you respond to that? I'm not an engineer, so I don't know what went wrong, why it's getting done again. Maybe it was supposed to get done again. And so you're talking, you know, we're a legislative body, we're not an engineering body, so we those are really tough questions to answer, and it takes a lot of research, and honestly, having that will help out a bunch, I think. Any other discussion on this resolution, Commissioner Santori?
Well, on that note also, I've noticed with a couple of meetings I've done so far, and the third one, I've been asking for the bid sheets for each one. It's helpful for me to have those in advance, and then I can compare it line by line, because as a couple other commissioners pointed out, there was a survey as built on one but not on another, and I'm wondering, do we need to add that, and why is it on here? So it would just help me compare costs. I mean, in this particular case, the bids we're nowhere near Klein's, but if they were, we might be considering which contractor to use. Thank you.
Any other comments on this? I'll look for motion before we open up to public comment.
Motion to approve resolution 2026-09 with the provision that there be a survey conducted before the work begins.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
On that, this elevation survey conducted, did you say before, after?
Ahead of time.
Ahead of time. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt.
Any members of the public? All right, seeing no one close public comment. Final comments for roll call? All right, Penny, if you can call the roll.
Commissioner Spradley.
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham.
Yes.
Commissioner Santori.
Yes to motion?
Chair Cooley.
Yes to the motion. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. All right, resolution 2026-31. Drew?
Resolution 2026-31, a resolution by the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, approving the reimbursement of costs incurred by the city manager in response to a State of Florida Commission on Ethics complaint, providing for conflicts, providing for an effective date.
All right, city manager.
No real comment, just seeking reimbursement as allowed for in my contract.
All right, any comments on this or questions? Mr. Santori?
Yes. So the ethics complaint was dismissed, and I support the reimbursement under the contract. But since we have the full investigative report in front of us as part of this agenda item, I think it's worth noting some process lessons going forward. The miscommunication and scattered communication over the sale of the golf course eroded public trust. We didn't give another buyer an opportunity to bid, which our own city attorney says competition is beneficial to receive the best offer. I know it was repeatedly said and demonstrated we cannot run a golf course, but it's ironic we were even worse at selling one. So here we are 2.5 years later, and it still hasn't sold, and it's still not a golf course.
Mr. Spradley? Saw your green light on.
Yeah. No, I mean, the resolution should be approved. I respect Commissioner Santori. I don't follow the comments and as how that relates to this particular matter. The complaint was dismissed. That's it. So I support the reimbursement.
Any other comments?
I can't support it, sorry. I have reasons, I can call them all out.
And no other comments. I'll look for a motion before I open up to public comment.
Make a motion to approve resolution 2026-31.
I'll second the motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I'll open this up, public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one, will close public comment. Any other comments before we do roll call? Mayor?
This is not the first time I've heard Commissioner Cunningham make innuendo about allegations. I think it's time we hear those allegations. This has been done repetitively, and I'd like to hear what substantiates it.
Okay. You're talking about the list he was referring to? Okay. Commissioner Cunningham, is that something you're interested in doing?
I'd be glad to. Like RJ was saying, Commissioner Santori, sorry, I gotta get used to that. Looking at all the data that's in the agenda packet with the time frames when the ethics people were doing their investigation, it goes back before the lease was even signed in 23. There was meetings going on and all that. Everything was, nobody knew what was going on. I certainly didn't know what was going When I was elected last year, shortly after we had our 100 year, where we went out there and had the Human 100 with the pictures and all that with the Rotary. Me and my wife and her brother, we happened to be walking behind Drew. And Drew has a loud voice. And I heard him saying that Dale had told him to tee up the contracts and paperwork to sell the golf course. And I didn't say anything to Drew. So my very next meeting with Dale, I asked him if he said for Drew to do that, and Dale told me no. And, which I knew wasn't the case, because I know what I heard, and my wife and my brother-in-law. After I got out of my meeting with Dale, I called Drew and asked him the same thing. I prefaced it saying, I already know the answer to this question, but I want to ask you, and you also told me no. So I just feel like I wasn't informed and wasn't told the truth, honestly. And that's concerning. That's why I can't support it. I don't know how the ethics investigation, any of that went, but I know what I know. What I'm reading and what I heard, and told no on those items, and that's why. There you go.
All right, further discussion on this item? We've already done public comment, right? Yeah. Okay. Any other discussion on this before we do roll call? All right, Penny, if you can call the roll, please.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
No.
Commissioner Sanatori?
Yes to motion?
Excuse me, Commissioner Spradley?
Yes to the motion.
Chair Cooley?
Yes, motion. Motion passes 4-1. All right, we'll move on to public hearings. Ordinance 2026-05, Drew.
Resolution 2026-05, an ordinance of the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances of the City of Flagler Beach related to the use of bicycles, electric bicycles, motorized scooters, motorized skateboards, and off-road electric motor-driven cycles, providing for enforcement and penalties for violation, providing for severability, codification, conflicts, and an effective date. One typo left over from the changes from the prior version. Page 157, line 178, there's a duplication. You see that line, the line begins a crosswalk. A person operating an electric bicycle shall yield, actually can be stricken, because that's contemplated what's been added here. Otherwise, these are what you saw at first reading plus the items that Mr. Santori brought up that we worked through the first step.
All right, discussion. Questions, comments? Mr. Spradley? Or are you turning off? All right. So, City Attorney, I had a question for you. The state is working on something, and it's coming down the pipeline. Is this potentially going to preempt what is on?
No.
And I guess one of the reasons why I ask this is because, you know, we heard from the public, and this is not, I don't believe that this is, you know, a perfect final copy. I think this is something that, as this hobby evolves, this is going to need to evolve as well. I think this, you know, would be like a first shot out. But then that brings up a whole nother mindset of, do we wait on what the state is doing and then go with that, and then move forward with this if we find there's gaps?
There's nothing new coming out of the state legislature than what they've done, which is limited to e-bicycles themselves and limited to the speeds and the powers. It's much narrower than what you're doing here. That's not going to, that legislation, that's not going to be part of the special legislative session. There's not going to be any more legislation coming out this year regarding e-bikes.
Got it.
So the things that you're doing in this, that's not the stuff that the state's looking at.
Right, because we have all kinds of other stuff in this, which is needed, because there's all kinds of other stuff out there on our streets and sidewalks and front yards and beach and everything else. All right, so general discussion about this ordinance or comments? Look for a motion before public comment.
Motion to approve ordinance 2026-05.
I'll second.
All right, I have a motion and a second. I'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
Mark M. Hoof, 261 Ocean Palm, beautiful Flagler Beach. I'm not totally familiar with what's happened. I know you guys are trying to limit the problems with electric vehicles. It seems more like what I'm hearing you talk about teenagers, you know, like Commissioner Cooley was talking about. They come, whatever the group comes in your store, and you made a reference to how they wouldn't follow rules or something. So maybe they're the problem. I do know, and where we live on the south side, 2 deaths have already occurred down there at Gamble Rogers, and it's dangerous riding on the road down there. I don't know if you have any idea about maybe doing where if you're riding an electric vehicle, you'd be going in the same areas as the golf carts or some kind of thing like that. I've seen a lot of really well-organized cities. They have the sidewalks actually have partitions drawn on the sidewalk, and you must be in that lane. And if you're a pedestrian, you're on that side or whatever. Just as someone who does ride an electric bike, I come down here to shop on it. Most people down my end either have the golf carts or we take electric vehicles up here because it's cheaper and less traffic and stuff. So, and I guess we could cut back through the, is that the idea, is to divert everybody back through the residential areas? I'm not really sure where the map is going to be where it's okay to use these electric vehicles. But those are just some ideas. It's really dangerous to ride on. Like I would take the fine of riding on A1A down from where I am, from the county line, all the way around the bend to Snack Jacks. It's pretty dangerous. So that's all my input. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any other members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Bring it back up here for discussion. Mr. Emhoff brings up a really good point. We do have some sidewalks that are extra wide. You can ride a golf cart on them. On the south side, you can take a golf cart on that. That's in the high-speed portion of A1A. It's a segment of sidewalk that is wide enough that does allow golf carts. City Attorney, do you view that as practical? You know, is there a way to change wording to allow? I mean, if you can take a golf cart on that path, you should be able to take an e-bike on that path, I would think. I guess the question would be for y'all up here, or would y'all be okay with that ad getting there for the south side? And then if so, then it kind of defaults to city attorney about that.
Can I get you guys to look at 111 through 116, because that was one of the directions from the commission at the last meeting, was to actually allow these on sidewalks in some places. So actually now we have an exclusion zone. So I don't know if the areas you're talking about are included in what's currently, in what we've modified from between first and second to allow the electric bicycles on. And that's the section that's dealing with that, which is why I ask you to put eyes on it.
So you got the change in here on 10th to 10th. And that's far outside 10th to 10th. So that would mean that if you have an e-bike, you could take it on the sidewalk.
Yeah, we made that 10th to 10th a new restricted zone. Instead of everywhere, we said 10th to 10th.
Got it. That's all.
And that came from Charlie's comments. I think Charlie is one who brought those forward at first reading.
Okay. So that solves itself.
Yeah.
All right, well, that makes things easy. All right, further discussion?
Just for clarification, so if you're outside the 10th to 10th and you're on the sidewalk, you would still have to slow down if there's a pedestrian present within a certain amount of feet, correct?
Correct. That all still applies, and that actually, so that's why you had to add sidewalk back to those, because when it was just, you weren't allowed on the sidewalk, we didn't have to say that for sidewalks, even though we say it for crosswalks. So that's why sidewalks actually got added back to that for that reason.
City manager.
Just thinking ahead a little bit, Sun Trail is projected to be constructed in 2028, 2030, and the Sun Trail is going to go from the south city limits to the north city limits, including South 10th to North 10th. So would that impact the use? Again, we're 3 to 4 years out, but the Sun Trail is going to encourage cyclists, probably e-cyclists, not golf carts. But would that require this to be revisited when the Sun Trail is constructed?
It would, but wasn't Sun Trail pushing folks off A1A through the
preliminary plan, and his only discussion is to have the Sun Trail go up the west side of A1A. At this point in time, we're talking to 9th Street, and then because it gets too narrow, there's not sufficient right-of-way, it's going to take 9th Street west to Wickline Park, and then come up around the tennis courts and up South Flagler, off the road, but in that area to the west side of South Flagler. Then at some point north of 100, it will cross back over to the east side, up to 10th Street, and then find a way from 10th Street to get back to A1A again. So this area is included, but again, it's 3 to 4 years down the road yet, but whether, make a note.
Potentially you have a one-block conflict on the south.
No, you'd have from 9th Street to 10th Street, or from 10th to 10th, because the Sun Trail will exist between 10th to 10th.
But not on the sidewalks, right?
It'll be a completely new path.
Correct. So Sun Trail plans on possibly building sidewalks on the side streets?
That's what they're looking through the design of how do you get past downtown, because the Sun Trail is typically a 12 to 15 foot wide trail. That's why we have to divert. There's not enough right of way in the downtown area. So the plan is, and that's what FDOT is looking at, every single side street, every single numbered street, to find out where's the fewest amount of driveway conflicts. How do you get to South Flagler by Wickline Park, curl around the tennis courts? That can become sort of a trailhead. Wickline Park is a trailhead, and then you go up South Flagler to 10th Street, and then back to A1A at North 10th Street to go to the north part of town as you came into town from the south.
Right, so there would be a conflict, yeah. It would have to get revisited, but that's why we said this is first shot.
Right.
Well, I would say, given the timeline being unknown and given the potential of delays, et cetera, I think this needs to be done and be done now with the thought of revisiting that when Sun Trail becomes in it.
Right. Yeah, there's a sense of urgency around this with summer approaching. Commissioner Shaw?
Yeah, I was going to say, let's go ahead and push forward with it, but also you did mention, the width of the sidewalks. You guys, so the sidewalks, correct me if I'm wrong, we're going to have wider sidewalks on A1A with this Sun Trail, correct?
The general intent of Sun Trail is that they will completely remove the existing sidewalk and put new. They're not just going to add an extension to the current sidewalk. They're going to tear everything up and build a brand new 8 to 12 foot path.
Right.
That golf carts can't go on.
But bicycles that's what I'm saying. So there'd be a wider path. So, I know our concern's pedestrian safety, but at least, we hopefully people, there's some common sense here, and we're going to have a larger width for those individuals to traverse when that time comes. So I think, there should be a little bit more safer for the e-bikes to go through pedestrian or go around pedestrian traffic, not through.
There's going to be a new type of bike in 230 anyway that we're going to have to address.
All right, Commissioner Santori.
City Attorney, would having anything on the books prevent a project like Sun Trail going forward?
No.
Okay.
Further discussion? All right, we did public comment on this, right? I have trouble keeping track of this stuff. All right, so without that, we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Cunningham,
Yes.
Commissioner Santori,
Yes to motion?
Commissioner Spradley,
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman.
Yes.
Chair Cooley.
Yes to the motion. Motion passes 5-0 unanimous. Just as a little bit of housekeeping, when we were discussing the proposal for expected outcome or that verbiage, I want to just make sure for the record, did we have a consensus on making a change to the cover packet? Okay. Just wanted to make sure we had that on record. Okay. Yeah, it's just the consensus part of it wasn't super clear. I want to make sure that we did agree or not agree on it. All right, we'll move on to ordinance 2026-07. Drew?
Ordinance 2026-07, an ordinance to the City Commission of the City of Flagler Beach, Florida, amending Chapter 12 of the Code of Ordinances, setting forth general provisions for mobility fees, definitions, purpose, and adoption of the mobility fee study, providing for imposition and a mobility fee schedule, providing for codification, conflict, severability, and for an effective date.
All right, thank you. City Manager, you want to intro this?
I will gladly pass to Ms. McClenny.
Thank you. Now, in 2025, about a year ago, the city contracted with New Urban Concepts to prepare a mobility plan and to assist the city with adopting a mobility fee, which is applicable to development and to redevelopment. So the mobility plan actually sets the framework for being able to move people and providing mobility choices and meeting future demand. So existing and future transportation conditions were evaluated to develop a mobility plan, the draft, including a preliminary list of some recommended projects, which you see. We had 2 stakeholder meetings. They were held and changes were made to the draft in response to feedback received during those stakeholder meetings. And the 2050 mobility plan includes projects addressing future mobility needs for residents and visitors to the city. And the development of a city mobility fee is the first step in a multi-step process to replace transportation concurrency with an alternative transportation system based on the mobility plan, and the fee is provided in the Florida statutes. The mobility fee is an equitable, a one-time payment for new developments to mitigate impact to the city's multimodal transportation system. So the city mobility fee, documented in the technical report that was provided to the commission, is consistent with legal and statutory requirements, and staff recommends the city commission approve the mobility plan as presented. And we also have Jonathan here, as Lauren was stuck in traffic, to share his presentation, which was provided early to the commission. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. Jonathan Paul, the Principal of New Urban Concepts. My colleague Lauren Rushing did get stuck in traffic coming down from Jacksonville, and so I'm pleased to present to you before this evening the mobility plan, mobility fee. It's actually interesting in many of the discussions you had before this item today. I think it kind of highlights how much transportation impacts the everyday life of communities such as Flagler Beach and really communities throughout Florida. But we're all impacted by it, whether it be stormwater, whether it be redevelopment, whether it be closing off streets, whether it be where you allow a bike path, or a sidewalk, or a golf cart to be used. It really does impact all of your day-to-day functions and needs. And so we've done these for communities throughout the state of Florida. We've done them as small as the city of Bunnell here, just to the west of y'all. And we've done them as large as Miami Beach, and we're working on West Palm Beach right now in the city of Port St. Lucie. And what we found is these documents can either serve as a placeholder for a fee, and you collect the money and you help to fund transportation, and that's all they stand for. Or they actually become the guiding tool for how a community plans its transportation network. And the communities that we've found that have actually embraced the mobility plans and actually use them as an active tool in terms of their redevelopment reviews, stormwater reviews, discussions with the TPO, discussions with FDOT, they've been able to leverage these mobility plans successfully to bring in a lot of grants, to bring in a lot of outside funding, to make people aware of the opportunities. FDOT does listen, the counties do sometimes listen. But FDOT generally does listen more so to innovative ideas that are going on in communities. What they like to have is projects that are already vetted, and they don't like to have surprises. They want to go into a community that's already said, we want to see X in our community. They don't want to go out there and present X and then all of a sudden the governor receive 1,000 emails saying this is the worst thing since sliced bread. They want to say, is this something your community supports? And so communities have used this mobility plan as the first step to help fund, design, and sort of start laying out your vision for how you want people to move around your community. And it really is a 24-year look into the future for how people are going to move in and around Flagler Beach. And then the projects that we identify in the plan itself serve as a basis for a mobility fee. And a mobility fee is something that's assessed on new development, not existing homeowners, not existing residents, but new development to help mitigate its traffic impacts. We're working on a revision to this map to include the areas that could potentially annex into the city to also be accounted for. The way the ordinance reads is any areas that are within the municipal limits of Flagler Beach will be assessed a mobility fee if they come in for a building permit application for a new project or expanding their existing business or their home. But these fees are not, just for any members of the public that may be listening, these are not taxes on existing residents. These are not taxes on your existing home. You're not going to receive a bill from the city or from the county for a mobility fee. This is if you are building a brand new development. The way we structured this is if you're tearing down a home and then you build 3 times as large, you would pay for the additional square footage of that home. If somebody is rehabbing one of the motels along A1A here and they just rehab it as is, they wouldn't pay a fee. If they tear it down and they build another story above, they would pay on the incremental difference of those. So it's very important just for any members of the public out there to understand this is not a fee assessed in terms of a tax. It is only for new growth and new development in the community. The city today does not currently have either a mobility fee or a road impact fee. To what extent you all have been doing the transportation concurrency, I think you've got a little bit of a taste of transportation as it relates to the annexation processes that you've been going through and some of the issues with the county, with FDOT, with the city of Palm Coast. But in general, most of the development you've likely seen on the beach side hasn't really raised a whole lot of issues related to concurrency. But the legislature is moving forward towards this process of a more transparent system where development can come in, mitigate its impact through payments of a fee, then the local government uses that fee to fund the improvements that it likes to see on its transportation system. So ultimately, this will replace the policies in your current system related to transportation concurrency, and it will require or be part of an amendment in the future to your comprehensive plan. The mobility plan itself really provides a holistic vision for dealing with transportation, and because this is sort of the first time it's been introduced in this community, this is really the first cut at it, setting the overall vision for what the city would like to see, or at least setting the groundwork for it, then providing a funding source to new development so you can start to look at plans, designs, or projects to move forward towards implementing those type of improvements. I will say the first time that these have been going around, there is some learning curves, there is some growing pains that go with it as they learn how to use these, but ultimately they become a very successful tool in getting funded for a lot of the improvements that you'd want to see. And the closest one to this area would be the city of St. Augustine that we did 4 years ago, actually coming on 5 years now. And they've actually built roughly 30% of their overall plan, and another 20% of that plan is in various design stages of being built and funded just within a 5-year period. Now granted, some of that had been, they did 20 years worth of studies beforehand, and we helped to bring in a lot of those studies, and then they actually identified a specific point person as a mobility director, and that person led all mobility initiatives within the city. And that's how we found these to be really successful, is whether or not you have a staff person, a consultant, or somebody on board that's looking at the transportation aspects of everything, because it does impact redevelopment, stormwater, the design of resurfacing the roadways, the piers. So many things are involved in transportation. Having somebody that's focused on that really helps bring a lot of those issues together and helps leverage it, most importantly, for funding. And as the gentleman earlier had mentioned, sometimes funding may be a source of, it's a maintenance project. It's a utility project. It has nothing to do with transportation per se in terms of making improvement, but oftentimes you can piggyback on that, and now you'll have a funding source through mobility fees to have some money to contribute to that. Say, hey, FDOT, consider decorative crosswalks on this, or consider streetlights, consider a wider pathway on this, or design, look at a roundabout as opposed to maybe just a traffic signal or an intersection improvement, and here's some funding to do that. And that's often been successful, and a lot of the DOT specifically has been willing to take a different look and a different approach to things to help make some of these changes. And so part of what we looked at is the existing conditions on your roadways and then the future conditions. And we did include, even though they're not officially part of the city, we did account for the potential of the annexations along John Anderson as we evaluated conditions and identified some of the improvements that we're going to discuss as part of the mobility plan. We've also done an inventory, what we call a quality of service evaluation of your sidewalks, your bike lanes, your existing roadways, and your speed limits throughout the city. One of the innovative things that we've done in St. Augustine, they were the first in the state, and there's been a few others that have followed on it. As part of their comprehensive plan, they've eliminated the term roadway level of service. And they've gone to what's known as a street quality of service that says the design speed of a roadway equals the posted speed limit. And you actually had a discussion earlier about Moody Boulevard. And so right now, FDOT historically uses the 85th percentile of the speed to determine how fast they should design a roadway. Well, City of St. Augustine's policy say, if you posted at 20, we want people to go 20. And we want the road designed for people to go a maximum speed of 20 miles an hour. That's a completely different mindset than saying, we're going to design the roadway to how fast people are driving, as opposed to how fast do we want people to drive. And so you've already laid the groundwork in terms of that in your local roadway network of your 20 miles an hour. The next step would be ingraining that into your comprehensive plan. And ultimately, you cannot force FDOT to lower the speed limits because your friends to the west here, Stark and Lottie, if you ever, I don't know if any of you are Gators, I'm a Gator, and they pulled over a couple of state representatives in their speed traps a few years back, when they used to have their speed limits go from 55 down to 25 miles an hour. So the state said no more local government setting speed limits on state roads. That's kind of how that happened. I'm been a victim of some of that myself. But FDOT is willing to listen. But you need to have one policies to say this is how we want people to move in our community. And then two, you need physical designs for the roadway. Just because you say a roadway is going to be 20 doesn't necessarily mean people are going to drive 20 miles an hour. So this is part of the overall process to get to that ultimate vision of where you want to go. And when these start becoming policies in your comprehensive plan, that starts becoming a basis when your city manager, when your staff goes to these DOT, they go to the long-range planning organizations, they go through the LRP. So these are our policies. Our policies are to slow traffic and make it safer for everybody within our community. Now you have 100,000 residents to the west of you all on Palm Coast that probably like to speed to the beach to get here quickly. So you've got to kind of take them into consideration as well. But there are some changes and some thoughts and ideas that we're proposing as part of this that may help to address some of those design issues in the future. So as part of this plan, we looked at some of the roadway improvements that are needed, potential for bicycle pedestrian improvements, the biggest being the Sun Trail along A1A, which can probably be one of the big game changers in this community. And then also there is talk in terms of The county's transit service on running some level of transit along A1A and along Moody. One thing we have done in terms of this roadway plan, we've looked carefully at the annexations and the traffic analyses that have gone along with that. For the most part, we're saying John Anderson should be able to function as a two-lane roadway and have adequate capacity. What we have added as part of this plan is a corridor study, and the funding for a corridor study and preliminary design to say, all right, is that really the case? You know, can John Anderson truly function as a two-lane roadway? Is it going to need turn lanes? Is it going to need some additional improvements along there? And are there innovative things that you can actually do as opposed to just allowing there to be, you know, a bunch of curb cuts and turn lanes on the road? Maybe it becomes access management, where they can only have one driveway per every mile or so, and then they have to have a frontage system along it. Or maybe they have to have landscaping and medians where they put a turn lane in. So it basically gives you some opportunities and some means to fund a study to look further into what John Anderson would be in the future. If that study shows 4 years from now that it needs to be a 4-lane road, when you update this in the future, you could then say it needs to be a 4-lane road, then your fee would likely go up much higher. But as of right now, the improvements that we called for on there are a corridor study, and then also for some turn lane improvements and intersection upgrades at the intersection of State Road 100, which would be needed. You know, either a lengthening of a left turn lane, an additional left turn or a right turn lane, some signal upgrades. We believe those, we feel those would be needed as part of that process. So just as you're thinking about this, we did look at that corridor. We didn't want to go out there and say it had to be 4 lanes today because the studies aren't showing that. But as more traffic comes in, as development comes in, you know, there are a lot of different ways to look at that roadway in the future and to handle and accommodate that type of development. This mobility plan helps to give you some funds to make that first step into figuring out what is most appropriate for that corridor. So all this is documented in a technical or mobility plan, and the fee itself we'll get into a little bit more in the technical report. And there are really just, you know, you've already done a lot in terms of slowing down speeds, promoting multimodal transportation. You're already dealing with the issues of golf carts and sidewalks and e-bikes. So there's a lot of things that you've already looked at, and we're just sort of bringing those together as part of this mobility plan and helping to build on those to continue to create a multimodal environment here within Flagler Beach. One of the concepts, if you've seen the core of downtown in St. Augustine, Avila Street, Spanish Street, Apollo Street, those are what are known as curbless shared streets. We've done several other of these in Lake Wales, and also in Palm Beach County in West Palm and Palm Beach Gardens. And essentially, they remove the curb from the roadway, and they take full advantage of property line to property line, which tends to end up giving you sometimes an additional 20 feet to work with. And it's sort of a level, flat surface. Sometimes they use a little bit of pavers to make a valley curb, the gutter that you have out there, but it provides sort of a blended sidewalk, transitions for the curbing, and then the roadway space. So it allows for you to have special events. It allows you to have bollards that are actually implanted in the roadway, and your police department literally just goes there with a key and pulls them up. So if you wanted to shut those roadways off for special events or whatnot, but they tend to be much better in terms of for pedestrians and for holding events because they are level service, so there are no tripping hazards. Gainesville's getting ready to do one of these called the Streetery on one of their main corridors in downtown Gainesville. So it's been something successful, and something we think portion of Central Avenue, portion of 2nd and 3rd would all potentially be ideal candidates for that type of a treatment. And this is one that we had recommended in their mobility plan 4 years ago in Lake Wales, Florida, which is in Polk County, and they've actually just recently completed construction on this, and it's already helped immensely with redevelopment at their downtown. And in Lake Wales, they've got an amazing city manager out there. Victor Dover did their Lake Wales Connected plan, and they've really, if you want to see a community that's used a plan to help guide its vision and redevelopment, Lake Wales is a real good example of one. It's downtown. It basically died at one point, but it's really coming back and becoming a pretty vibrant community and attracting a lot of development. And a lot of that has just been used through transportation itself. We have proposed several sort of concept ideas. You already have a lot of ideas that are on along A1A, along Moody. We're proposing a few more here. The big part of it is we provided money for funding, design, and upgrades to the corridor. Ultimately, what those are, it's going to be a lot of community discussion. It's going to be a lot of discussion with FDOT. But we do think, even beyond what they're doing now, there are some more opportunities for further enhancements along the A1A corridor. We've done these in Miami Beach. We've done these in Sarasota, along Siesta Key and Lido Beach. We've done these up in the Panhandle in terms of Destin and Seaside, Miramar, 30A. And they're started off as sort of small incremental pieces to further define a bicycle lane, a golf cart, and on-street parking with some landscape. And ultimately they became a much bigger design along certain corridors to help sort of guide the vision of that. Because one of the big things, talking about A1A, to get people to slow down, you need, one, a visual cue for them to actually start going slower. Two, you need something physically changing in the roadway, whether it be the median design, narrower lanes, landscaping, on-street parking. But you need sort of a step-down progression, slow speeds, so as you're coming into the core of down Flagler Beach, you're getting them at 20 miles an hour. And you can really do that appropriately through roadway design. And that's sort of what we just laid out here and included as part of this as a project. One, to help design it, to have fun, to go out and do the neighborhood charrettes to get support for it. And two, to have developers pay some money towards actually funding some of these types of improvements. And I don't really want to get into a whole lot of them because they're likely to change, but the idea is as you come into Flagler, there are different changes to the geometry of the roadway to the point where you ultimately get to slower speeds when you're in the downtown core near the pier. And then as you get out, maybe it's 25 miles an hour, and then eventually at the very periphery of the city, maybe it becomes 30. But a lot of those things you can change and physically influence through the design of the roadway. The biggest one I think you could really work on, and these aren't necessarily our concepts, these are concepts that you all laid out. We've seen various alternatives, and we've provided two different renderings in the plan itself for Moody, basically from Flagler to 100. One concept would be having your golf cart / bike lane / multimodal lane on the outside of both of the roadways next to the curb, then have some landscape median, and then have a two-lane divided section with some on-street parking. The other alternative we have is one that we've seen that you'd all prepared previously that has a median in the middle, the two travel lanes, on-street parking, and then just a wider sidewalk. Either one of them works fine. They both ultimately encourage the same ultimate goal, is to get people to go slower on Moody. And one of the bigger things that we think could potentially help address the issue with the bridge, I don't know if any of you have been to Gainesville. There's a development called Celebration Point that I worked on for a number of years over there. It's between Butler Plaza, just north of Archer Road. And we built a bridge over the interstate. And that bridge coming down to the Gainesville side actually ends in two series of roundabouts. And we actually were able to get the design speed of that bridge and that crossing to 30 miles an hour because one, it's coming into a stopped environment on one side of the street, the other side is coming down into two series of roundabouts. So, again, this is thinking, big idea, but these are kind of the thought concept to get FDOT thinking, to get the public thinking. If you want to get the members of the public out there, you pop a graphic out there saying, hey, we're going to do something different, radical, and Moody, you're going to get a lot of clicks. You'll probably get some clicks from those people saying hell no, and you get people in Flagler Beach saying, hey, this is a great idea. But the thought process is to get the discussion going, not to throw anything off the table. And really the mobility plan and mobility fee allow you to do that. The mobility plan says, hey, we want to do something on this corridor. The fee provides you some money to actually do that. One of the options of the thoughts was a roundabout at Flagler, and then maybe a little bit more radical was so potentially roundabout at A1A itself. And then, as Lupita mentioned earlier, this is really sort of setting the groundwork for a number of other initiatives. We don't really like to come down and take a top-down approach in communities we work in. We like to give them tools to actually have different types of projects and activities and programs that they can actually build on from themselves. Sometimes they use us, sometimes they use other consultants, sometimes they use their own staff house to build on these ideas. But there's really just sort of a lot of follow-on initiatives that you just can't cover quickly in a one-year study, but they do help to provide a lot of different alternatives to improving walking and bicycling. One would be considered what's a park lunch environment. You, like almost any coastal community in Florida, a lot of the ones we work in, struggle with how do you already have your residents. And, if all you had to deal with was your residents, you're probably, pretty able to do that. But you're the downtown and you're the beachfront destination for 100,000 people. You're, for lack of better terms, you're Palm Coast downtown. Or you're Palm Coast beachfront community. And so you've got all those residents coming over here and they're all driving. Maybe one or two people are riding their bicycle along Moody, but for the vast majority, they're all driving to here. The idea is, what do you do once they get here? They're your ones, if you're a resident, you know what roads to get find parking. They don't. So they're the ones driving all around the blocks, trying to find parking somewhere. So a lot of communities we've identified is, where do they have surplus land? Where can they put a temporary parking lot, maybe eventually a structure in the future or whatnot, or coordinate with the Publix on the other side of the interstate to get people capturing before they get over the bridge. That's a longer term vision, but how do you get people to come here once, park, and then make it easy for them to walk, bike, get an e-bike, or get a little circulator, a golf cart or something like that to get around the community as opposed to driving their car. And so this sort of sets a framework and the idea of that. It also proposes the idea potentially of a water taxi connecting your future residents on the west side of the intercoastal to the downtown area, so they're not all having to drive or go over Moody to get here. St. Augustine's implemented one, Port St. Lucie is getting ready to, for Lauderdale, Miami Beach, a lot of communities throughout Florida, Tampa, St. Pete. They're exploring using their intercoastal and their waterways in different ways to actually help move people along there as opposed to just driving. And then one of the things you already have the advantage of, and we've done this successfully in Bradenton and St. Augustine, are what's called low-speed streets. You're never going to be able to find sidewalks on all the streets in your community. I mean, just the sheer logistics of either stormwater, the residents getting upset about you tearing up their yardways, the swales, the drainage. The reality is, it's just going to be impossible if you were to say, we'd love for there to be a sidewalk on every single roadway in our community. The reality is, you weren't built that way, you weren't designed that way. You're not going to fix 100 years and a few years of doing it. What you do have is 20-foot of asphalt, and you've got a nice grid. And so what some communities have done is they said, well, it costs $10,000 to a mile of pavement marking to put a stripe on a roadway. What if we take that 20 foot and we stripe off 4 foot of it, and we just as a shoulder? So somebody has 4 foot of area to walk along. Or we stripe off, a little bit more of it for bikes and people, or we put some defined on-street parking, or we take one section, we're going to make a one-way pair, and we put some on-street parking there to help slow some people down. What we found the successful ones is to lay a program, put a program out there, and then to get your residents or get people along a certain block to get supportive of it, and let them come to you to say, hey, we'd like to test something different on our block or our couple of blocks here. Would you consider it? Here's a program. You're not tearing up the roadway to redo it, as opposed to you going out there saying, we're going to do this on your road. Because a lot of people don't like to be told what to do. but they do like some options and some solutions out there. So this is one of the programs that we found has been really successful, and we have put some money as part of the overall mobility fee in to get this started. But really an idea of how do you use pavement markings in your existing network to help narrow your streets down. Gainesville, granted, it's a college town, but they actually have a lot of similar roadways. They got a similar grid and some pretty narrow sections. And they've actually redone a lot of their corridors. Their focus has been a little bit more bicycles for students. So they've got some more sidewalks on there, but they've also used them for sidewalks. St. Augustine's done so as well. And they've actually gone back on a couple of roadways and just put sidewalks on top of the asphalt and just made the roadway narrower itself and actually put a 4-foot sidewalk because there was so much demand for it. So there's a lot of things that you can look at, different approaches to this to help fund the overall plan. And so all the projects we've identified, they are on the state road system. There are projects on the county roads, and then there are a number of other improvements. The overall cost we've estimated is roughly $229 million. A big portion of that is things on Moody and State Road 100. We really anticipated those would largely be funded by the state of Florida. So the actual costs that would go towards development or towards the actual fee itself is roughly $48 million over the next 20 plus years. That's a little over $2 million a year in terms of overall cost of these projects. And why that's important is that forms the basis of the mobility fee itself. And this is a fee that is assessed on new development. I guess it was last spring. 5 years ago, I did Palm Coast transportation impact fee, and then last spring, working with Rossiter Transportation Group, we updated their transportation impact fee. So we sort of use their fee as a guide. Flagler, they're suspended theirs for a while. They said they were going to study it. They haven't studied it. It's still the same fee from the 1990. So it's really not a good benchmark. But using Palm Coast fee as a benchmark, we tried to stay roughly in line with that or a little bit below in terms of the overall calculations. And we've successfully done that on the vast majority of the land uses. But we've used this methodology in all of our mobility plans and fees. Just for note, Palm Coast, we did a traditional road impact fee. They didn't do a mobility fee. They're not anywhere near this level of need in terms of multimodal planning yet to support this type of mobility. Theirs is solely based on roadway capacity. But part of this is we look at the increase in future travel on the roadway network. We change that travel to person travel, so people using bicycles, using golf carts, using other modes of transportation, and we help to build the mobility plan off of that. And these are just some of the factors that we use to get into this. And this is actually all documented in the mobility fee technical report. One, because it has to be for legal reasons, but two, we just try to be very transparent in terms of the overall process. If any of you want to get into any of these detailed calculations more so, I'd be happy to do so, but most of the time I'm interested in what is the actual end result of the numbers, of our projects, of all the methodologies that we use. And so the end result is, for the various land uses, if you had a 1,500 square foot house, the calculated rate is $2,981 per 1,000 square feet. What you do is, if you take that 1,500 divided by 1,000, so it'll be 1.5 times 2,981. So their mobility fee would be $4,472. The City of Palm Coast is $3,777 per 1,000 square feet, and they have the same methodology in terms of per square footage. And so the way we've assessed it in Flagler Beach, and it's something we've successfully done in a lot of communities, and it definitely benefits your coastal communities where you get a lot of redevelopment or eventually you're going to have tear downs and rebuilds, is if you had a 1,000 square foot house out there today, somebody tore it down, and they came in with a 3,000 square foot house, they would pay on the 2,000 square feet. They would get basically an offset for the 1,000 square foot that was there before, and then they would pay for the additional square footage. If they're building a brand new home, and this does not include garages that are not finished, but if they build a brand new home, it would just be whatever the square footage of the house is. So it's 2,000 square feet, it'd be 2,000, or it'd be 2 times 2981, so it'd be roughly about $6,000 for that. And that's really how the residential is calculated. And we've seen, so the county's fee. The county's fee just does it on a dwelling unit basis, so they wouldn't even account for a tear down. If it tore down the house, you wouldn't pay anything. In addition, mostly what you're going to see in your community here is tear downs and building much larger. And this is going to be a big way in terms of helping to recoup some of those fees. The one other thing we've done here, and I'm not sure you've experienced them a whole lot in some of the beach communities we deal with, but many of the communities we have, especially up on the Panhandle, they have a lot of the homes that are vacation rentals. So we basically treated those vacation rentals as hotels, and so they pay actually per room as opposed to per square footage. So that's the way your fee's been structured. If you start having that in the future, it would allow you to have that flexibility. I'm not sure that you're dealing with that yet here or not, but a lot of the coast, St. Augustine deals with it a lot. Seaside, the Panhandle, Destin, they deal with it, pretty much on every one of their units that came in. They're all vacation, second home type units, and so they've been charged actually on a per bedroom basis. For a retail use, and you don't really, we have several uses that are identified on here. Just because it's on the schedule doesn't necessarily mean it's allowed in your zoning. Because we have both sides of the interstate and or both sides of the intercoastal, you probably have different land use scenarios for the west as you opposed to do on the beach. So just because there's a drive-through was one of the questions asked at the Planning and Zoning Board. We do have rates per drive-through. That doesn't mean that a drive-through is allowed, within the beaches. It's just if you had one, this is what you'd pay for it. And so for a fast food restaurant with a drive-through, the square footage will be roughly 29,000 per 1,000 square feet, and then they pay an additional $22,000 per drive-through lane. So their total fee would be $140,000. So your retail use, especially some of the retail uses that tend to generate a lot more trips and traffic impacts, their fees are higher, but these actually are consistent and just a little bit under what the Palm Coast charges as well for some of theirs. I don't think you're going to probably have a whole lot of that. Most of likely what you're likely to have is overnight lodging, hotel, motel type of use, and those would roughly be $3,800 per room, or you're going to have the residential at $2,981. Mobile residents, some communities we're starting to see an increase in luxury RV parks. I don't know if you've had anybody, though, you sort of have an RV or, mobile home, mobile units on wheels community here, but we are seeing a push in some parts of the state for actually luxury RVs, luxury Airstream type of uses, so we have included that as well. But those are based on a per residence basis. When we have community serving, long-term care, private education, institutional, there are a few more categories in your other impact fees, and that's because transportation tends to be defined by trip generation, whereas the other impact fees that you have tend to be defined either by residents or employees. So that's why you have a little bit more fine gradation here in terms of overall categories. Outdoor recreational uses, indoor recreation, office use. And then your retail, most of what you'd have coming into your community is going to be your retail rate, and that's about $10,000 per 1,000 square foot. So the way we've structured this is we put in a definition of local. I believe it's 7 or fewer uses throughout the state. So that would capture, and we've included as local, any grocery, any restaurant, any pharmacy. Pretty much our catch-all falls under this retail rate. If you had a chain like a Starbucks or a McDonald's that comes in, they would fall under the high impact of the convenience retail rate, because we've sort of defined chain as 7 or more locations throughout the country. So this sort of helps to ameliorate a little, it's still going to be a hit on some of your local businesses, but it helps to soften that a little bit by saying there is a difference between a chain retail and a traditional local. One thing to keep in mind, though, is if you have an existing use and it's got a retail use in it, and they come in and they just redo that retail use, even if they put a new facade on it or they make some improvements on it, most likely a retail to retail is not going to pay anything. So if they're reusing your existing buildings, now if they came in there and they did a retail and they did a Starbucks, they would likely pay the incremental, they pay the difference between the two of those. But if it's a mom and pop sandwich shop replacing a mom and pop coffee shop, they're likely not going to pay anything between those two uses. So just wanted to, we tried to be as mindful of that as we could be in terms of the local retail, because you do have, unlike a lot of other places, you're not dominated by chain retail uses. You do have a lot of local uses from a retail perspective here in your community. And again, most of these would probably be a little bit more applicable to the west. These are some of the more, if you had a vehicle fueling, vehicle repair. We have added one that's been becoming sort of increasingly popular, is we do have a fee per parking space. So if you're going to go out there and you're going to do a service lot or surface parking, and you're going to charge somebody for it, or you're going to have a tow company or a wrecking company or storage overnight for RV, we do have a fee there in terms of parking per space basis, because they do tend to have an impact on the overall transportation system. How you ultimately want to implement that probably needs to get a little more into your LDR regulations, but that's been something increasingly a lot of our local governments have asked for. And then retail drive-through, again, I don't think they're necessarily permitted here on the beach side, but if you had one, they do pay a pretty high fee for that. So that said, this is the first reading. If there are any changes to any of the land uses, any changes to any projects, any direction that you'd like to give us in terms of the ordinance itself, now would be the appropriate time to do so. Anything you direct us to do, we'll make those changes in a relatively quick turnaround. And then there is at least a scheduled adoption hearing for April 23rd, which would be 2 hearings or 2 weeks from now. Ultimately, that's up to you all. I've covered a lot of information here today, and trying to answer any questions that you may have. But that's sort of the time frame we're on, and with that, that completes my presentation.
All right, questions for the consultant while he's up on mic? All right, I guess you're off the hook. All right. General conversation about the mobility plan and fees, or the ordinance. Mr. Spradley.
Long overdue, and I think it's a great start. I enjoy hearing not only the content, but the tenor of how a lot of what is being suggested here has been implemented in other communities, some larger, but still I get the general idea. But I think it's long overdue, and it's a great start, great information to have.
Other comments, Commissioner Sherman.
I just want to kind of go along the lines with what Commissioner Spradley said, and this kind of goes back also to when we were at our strategic planning, and I think it was Commissioner Cooley that said, we don't have a people problem, we have a car problem, and I think putting these these fees into place will help move people throughout the city, and some of these guys getting excited looking at the different designs and things that we can do to find alternative ways of getting people around the city in a safe manner without again using a bunch of cars. And I think this is how we get there, and with the impact fees that we are seeing coming our way in the near future, this is we have the funding, and we can always start to move that vision forward.
Mayor?
Totally agree. Long time in the works. It's definitely needed. The more crowded and pedestrian golf carts, bicycles, e-bikes, everybody's vying for the same small piece of real estate to travel on. I'm a little worried. We want to be business friendly. If I were coming in as a small business, these fees on top of building permits, it's a little frightening, in my opinion. But other than that, I think it's a great idea.
Mr. Santori?
Yeah, I just want to commend Jonathan and Lauren and staff. I thought the presentation and the material in this agenda item was really well put together. It was easy to follow. Any questions I had, I could find in here, and it looks like an exciting project. And I think I'll take a closer look at some of those numbers with the businesses too, and I guess we can discuss that either now or at the next one.
Commissioner Cunningham, did you have anything?
I was just gonna do the RJ.
All right. So I guess, Jonathan, I did have a question for you. So you're not off quite yet. So when we did fees before, and this is not mobility, but this was other fees, we were higher than Palm Coast, I believe, on almost everything when we readjusted. So I guess the question is, in this, we are lower than Palm Coast. I would have assumed that we would have ended up higher than Palm Coast, based off need, size, lack of fees, stuff like that. Is there rationales driving above or below Palm Coast?
Well, one of the biggest rationales is Palm Coast is all road capacity. So, road capacity itself, they tend to be 15 to 12, anywhere from 15 to $20 million a mile for improvements. So, a couple of miles of roadway is your entire mobility plan. That's really the biggest thing. And then also, that's kind of why I wanted to point out to you on John Anderson. Because we didn't identify, we want to add another lane to that roadway, we're just studying it now and looking design on it. If you said, hey, we want to add another lane to that roadway, whether it be a center turn lane or a parallel lane, that would increase the cost some, and that would be able to charge potentially a higher fee on that. Multimodal projects in general tend to be less than, roadway widening projects. So that's really one of the, probably the only reason why it's different than Palm Coast is in this instance, a lot of these things we're doing are a little bit more, conservative, but they're, better cost for your buck. We could look at some of the assumptions on, in terms of the state road, and we've assumed a 90% share funded by the state. We could potentially adjust that share somewhat a little bit higher, and that would raise your fees. Likewise, but of course, I would raise them across all categories. I'd raise them for retail, for residential, and I will say, your retail rates in Palm Coast in this area, they're certainly not, cheap. They're not moderate. I mean, they're a pretty consistent rate with what we've seen in the state. Your residential fees could be a little bit higher, but that's really, if you all give us some direction to sharpen the pencil a little bit more and to maybe look at, if there's another project that we didn't have in there or something on John Anderson, we consider some of that funding. We could certainly do so, and we could look at also maybe the retail rates a little bit further detail to see if we couldn't bring those down some if that was one of your directions to do so. But that's really the direction that you would all give us today would help guide us, and we'll make those changes relatively quickly and get that back to you. But that is, the cost of the projects is the big difference between the Palm Coast. And then I don't think your other fees specifically use a plan-based system. I know Tischel Bice, they tend to use per average cost, whereas here we're actually using the cost of projects like we did in Palm Coast. And their plan is, I think, $500 million, and that's just for a couple of roadways versus $48 million.
All right, thank you. Mayor?
you bring up John Anderson. Are we going to have to enter into some agreement with the county since the county is John Anderson?
True.
No.
Okay.
As it stands right now, the city is not taking over John Anderson.
Okay.
That got flushed out with all the 164 stuff and all those concerns.
But again, like I mentioned earlier on the FDOT, by having some funding in there, if you wanted something beyond the basic bare minimum on John Anderson, i.e. an 11-foot wide, turn lane, you would have some money in your mobility plea to go to the county and say, we would like to see something different on John Anderson as opposed to the same old, same old. Because otherwise what you're going to get is a turn lane and a driveway and a traffic signal, and you're going to get what you see anywhere else in Palm Coast on a county roadway. So that's your opportunity to do something unique along that corridor.
And Mayor, like yourself, when I started going through and looking at fees, some of them at first glance seemed high. But then when Jonathan was presenting, and he mentioned that these are lower than Palm Coast, then I was like, okay, they're lower than Palm Coast. We'll be considered, say, a premium just because of the lack of available land. So if you want to build in Flagler Beach, you don't have a lot of choices. So as far as being competitive as a market, I think we actually would, if anything, if the pendulum would almost swing the other way to go to the premium side. This is just my opinion. So it doesn't scare me as much, but at first glance, so wow, that's a lot of money to develop. Could it scare away potential future development? After seeing the presentation, hearing where we are positioned versus Palm Coast, I think that if anything, we might be under-putting a little bit. I'd be leaning towards that. And the only other takeaway I had was I really like some of those graphics that were up there on road design, especially the Moody one. And I remember, if y'all remember, about a year or two ago, there was something that Paul McKayko was just tinkering with, ended up hitting social media, and everybody lost their minds. And so, Ed Fenley brought up a really good quote that, I don't know if y'all caught it, but he said, let the engineers do the design. You tell the engineers how you want the road to function. So you say you want a protected pedestrian or bike path, and and then let the experts go be experts at getting the vehicles through traffic counts and doing all that stuff. Because looking at a graphic, you might, as a layman, you might look at that and say, how would this even work? Well, that's why they're engineers and we're not. And but it really resonated, because the second Ed was talking about that, I immediately remembered how that was received on social media, and everybody lost their minds. And I must have gotten 30 phone calls and 100 visits to my business about it, and are you guys going to do this? How are cars even going to get through there? And rather than try to play traffic engineer, it's like, look, this is how we want this section, the gateway of Moody, to function, and the purposes we want it to serve. And then we'll give the engineer's number out to all the constituents or something like that. But that was my takeaway. But I don't know.
If it's your direction for us to go back, and look at the numbers and bring you back something, there's certainly some. We take this is the first time I've presented before you all. We take not the most aggressive approach, but not the most conservative approach. We try to be fair on it. But there's certainly factors that we can look at. The pacing, depending on your direction. It's all technical based. It's all legitimate in terms we do it. We don't make up any numbers, but there's a lot of different ways to look at these fees. And so if your direction is to look at them a little bit further because you don't think they're necessarily high enough, or whether it's too high on resident, or too high on retail, not enough on residential, we can go back, take another look at it and come back with you on revised numbers.
How do y'all feel about where we are positioned currently on fees? Commissioner Santori?
Well, I mean, for me, I think one of the goals I would have to stimulate more local business, small business. So I don't know if there's a way to relook at some of those numbers. I think in general, I think most of Flagler Beach residents love having all the local home-owned businesses here and not all the change. But I don't know how that affects everything on the other side of the bridge now that's developing. I don't think we're necessarily looking for that on the other side.
Well, we could definitely take a look at that retail category as it relates to local.
Mayor?
Once I sit back and listen and think and see what these fees can produce for our community, it makes perfect sense. I just have to get over that initial something we've never had before, and as a small business owner, it's like, wow, but look at what it's going to provide our community, and that's what our community is about. We're about walkable and bicycles and golf carting, and we want everybody to travel together safely, and if we all have to pay for it in this fashion, that makes the most sense. So, I'm on board.
Commissioner Spradley?
Yeah, I mean, there's always sticker shock, when we take a look at these things. But I fall into the category of what Commissioner Cooley was saying. I'm not an expert on these financial matters, and these numbers didn't just appear out of thin air. They've been worked at. So I'm not going to stand in your shoes and say, well, I want this to be lower or higher. I go with your expertise. Thank you.
Mr. Sherman?
I'm good with the numbers that have come before us. I think it's much needed, and I think the outcome of the return on the investment on this is amazing to see what the potential is there and the opportunity that we can again enhance life for our residents, right, and make it a better place for them. And I know that was some of the comments that were made. I think of Charlie when he was up here. Well, what's this going to do for us? What's it going to make our life better? Well, here's an example of what we can do with this extra revenue that's going to be coming into town to help enhance the life, hopefully for our residents to traverse around town.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Mine's more, I'm glad you're back up there. Mine's more a question on the roundabouts at Flagler and A1A. You think the DOT is realistic going to let something like this happen and reduce from 4 lanes down to 2 lanes?
If you don't ask for it, no, it won't happen. If you push for it, I mean, I've seen that stuff like a complete 180 on roundabouts statewide. They're starting to recognize the benefit of them. A1A and 100, that may take a little bit of time, but Flagler and the bridge, I certainly think it's a viable option. And part of what we laid out as well, and sort of kind of goes a little bit in terms of the Sun Trail network, we've also laid out the idea of some intersection improvements at 10th and A1A to the north and 9th and A1A to the south. So while you're making these improvements, your traffic would have another way to go around 9th, come up Flagler, and go up to Moody, not necessarily come down to the main part of Moody or the main part of the pier. The benefit you all have is you have a grid. You have a beautiful grid, and it allows for traffic to get dispersed without any one main corridor bearing the brunt of it. Most people from out of the area, they're just going to stand with 2 state roads. That's what all the GPS tells them to do, and until you have the roadways designed properly, that's probably what they should do. But as part of this overall design, if you start looking at the fact that you have alternatives, which is what FDOT wants. FDOT wants to have, most places don't have a gridded network that you can go around to do something like this. You guys have that unique instance. St. Augustine struggled with it on King. They're getting the state to turn over King Street to the city, but it's run bad. But they really don't have, bypass alternatives. It's been a struggle. You actually all do. And so that is a benefit to do something different on Moody. So I think it's actually very realistic because you have the grid, and you've got a perfect grid in terms of east, west, north, south roadways So there isn't even just one road that you could turn down. There's a whole number of corridors you could get around relatively easy.
Thank you.
So the thoughts I have, and I'll let you, I'm gonna bounce it off you and I'll let you poke holes in it. This is a huge potential quality of life play for the city in terms of changing aesthetics, in terms of changing the downtown corridors and helping to manage and balance traffic and get people where they're supposed to go and cars where they're supposed to go and everything in the right spot, which we absolutely do not have. And if I was to have a recommendation, I would say we should be positioned as a whole higher than Palm Coast. But from the commercial side of the mobility fees, I would say we should be positioned at or a little bit below Palm Coast to encourage that large business sector that we're looking for out of Summertown and also redevelopment here. And then on the residential side, look, Flagler Beach is the premium area of the county. And I can tell you that unlike Palm Coast, which has tens of thousands of homes all competing for that a particular price point, we do not have that. The folks that want to live in Flagler Beach come to Flagler Beach, and a lot of that population doesn't even look at the price tag. You know, just my 2 cents. So I would think that on the residential side, we should probably be a little higher. The business side, be at or a little bit below Palm Coast, and then it positions us probably, in only my opinion, correctly where we would need to be, but maximizing the mobility, I look at the need, right? If anywhere needs massive amounts of money put into improving mobility, it's this city. Even far more so than Palm Coast. So I don't know, you know, I'd like to see it go up a little bit as a whole and split it that way. And, you know, I'd like to get y'all's thoughts on it. See what you think.
Yeah, I think it's strategic. I think that, you know, I think with, you know, there's going to be there's going to be some competition out there. I know that we're going to be maybe a little more appealing. You know, I'm not a business person, but just, you know, seeing what's going on over there in Town Center. Is it Town Center? Is that what they call it over there by the movie theater? You got a putt-putt golf course coming in. They've got that retail and those apartments going in. I mean, so there are going to be competing interests. So in my opinion, if I have an agreement with what you just said was, okay, let's bring down commercial a little bit, increase residential, and again, I think that would maybe give us a little bit of a competitive edge if, you know, we have a, you know, company A is looking at Palm Coast, and then, you know, oh look, you know, our location to the beach, and we're paying less of a mobility fee. Maybe that would make, you know, lead them to come over here versus developing over there in Town Center or something, you know, something along those lines.
Any other thoughts? Mr. Spradley?
Yeah, I mean, we have a situation here where we have very little space. You know, the beach is a premium around here, and it's going to be competed for. And we're not talking about necessarily our current residents. We're talking about new business owners who may be current residents, but from outside. So, because I believe that it's going to be competitive to get the space for new businesses and residential, I'm not inclined to entertain anything to lower the fees that we're talking about here. I mean, I just don't see it. Again, it goes to what we were talking about, the quality of life improvement. And I just hate to start giving out, you know, suggesting that we lower something when instead we need to be looking at what is the market value as it's been explained to us by Jonathan. And I don't really look at it in terms of comparing us to Palm Coast, because that's not necessarily how he came up with these numbers. He came up with these numbers because that's what the market will bear. The fact that it may be in some instances less than Palm Coast, so what? You know, or it may be more than Palm Coast. For me, that comparison doesn't hold any water. So I like the numbers. I'm not in favor of suggesting that we lower a one-time fee, right? It's a one-time fee If business wants to come here, they're going to come here. They're not going to say, well, I wish it was $1,000 more. I'm going to go elsewhere. I just don't see it happening. So I'm good with the numbers. They seem to be supported by the market. And so I say we proceed forward on that. Thanks.
Mr. Santori.
I'm in agreement with Commissioner Spradley. I think we're in a premium area and hopefully bringing in some premium businesses. Just from the one I've heard was a potential from the annexation talks, and I think we can always revisit this. So if we're in a situation where the market takes a downturn, or we're not getting the influx of businesses that we think we need, we can always revisit this and lower it. But I'm in agreement with Commissioner Spradley.
Yeah, and to your point, so revisiting it to go up is, I believe, 4 years, 5. Yeah, to go down is easy. You can go down at any time, I believe, right? Yeah. So going down is always easy. If you want to raise it from after second reading, you got 5 years where you got to, if you need to raise it any higher, you're gonna hold. Mayor, do you have something?
You're comfortable with these numbers based on this data for the next 25 years?
I'm comfortable with the numbers. I mean, I think, any of these factors can be looked at in a little bit different scenarios, but I mean, they reflect the actual cost and they reflect the actual impacts of it. But, again, what we did in terms of the, the projects, we made some certain assumptions in terms of cost allocations and certain projects on there. If we revisited those, the cost would go up. And if we didn't, then they would stay the same. So that's really the factors that we'd look at.
I'm good with these as presented.
Mr. Cunningham.
I just want to ask one thing. Veranda Bay and Summertown, there's nowhere in the agreement, annexation agreement, that exempts any of that out of this fee, right?
City Attorney.
There were limited exemptions, like I think there was the exemption for the boat slips and things like that, but there's something that exempts them out of wholesale.
And City Manager, do you have something?
Yeah, just to remind you that we do have the TPO application in from last year, which it is ironic because I remember, as Commissioner Cooley indicated, the initial response, even from some of the people on the dais, was like, okay, we'll talk about it, but we're not supporting narrowing Moody at this point in time. And those were comments that were, as you said, community-wide. But we do have the TPO, that what we have in for it is a feasibility study to determine or to review the narrowing of Moody Lane, or Moody Boulevard. The other thing is if I understood it correctly, if you're not changing the square footage of retail, you don't have the fee. So I think there may be an unintended consequence, in a good sense, that if somebody can buy an existing structure and remodel it and avoid this fee, we may drive
big savings.
They may say, what, it's cheaper for me to renovate and improve a building instead of virgin soil someplace else and building a brand new building. So that may be a good unintended consequence of driving people to rehabilitate existing buildings instead of building brand new all over the place.
So, pleasure of the board. Do we want him to sharpen his pencil going up, sharpen his pencil going down, or keep it as is, as a whole?
Yeah, I'm not seeing, again, I sit here in my capacity as a non-planner, engineer of sorts, so I'm good with them as they are. I wouldn't know what direction to give. I mean, he's giving us the numbers they've come up with, and I'm not comfortable saying go up, go down. He's already said what the numbers are.
What about this side of the room?
I'm okay with the numbers. Let's push forward with it.
Me too.
Okay. I was looking for higher, but yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Only because I look at, cost benefit. You look at what those dollars can do to our city. It's massive. But, again, we are starting from not having mobility fees, so we're off to a good start there. Okay, so we have consensus on that. Any other questions for Jonathan while he's up there? Okay, and, I'll look for a motion before public comment.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance 2026-07.
Second to motion?
We have a motion and a second. I'll open this up to public comment. Any members of the public wish to speak on this agenda item?
Sometimes I can't help myself. Good evening, Commissioners. Tony Raimondo, aspiring resident again, and I think that this is something that will impact me. One of the first things I saw when I came to Flagler Beach, I looked at the parking areas, the municipal parking areas, and I said to my wife, with very little expense, very little effort, we could improve walkability and connectivity, not only to the beach, but to the retail areas. It's wonderful what's there. And then think about, I mean, I agree with Commissioner Spradley that this is overdue. Frankly, I was surprised to see it on the agenda. But think about what we talked about tonight. We heard from the TPO. We talked about e-bikes. We talked about golf carts. We talked about traffic calming patterns on Moody Boulevard. By the way, I think the use of roundabouts is brilliant. And Commissioner Cunningham, if you're concerned about it, if you haven't been into DeLand from I-4 on 44 recently, they wiped out all of those traffic lights and put in roundabouts, and it worked famously. I think that's a great idea. I also like multimodal transportation. Park over there and come in by boat or by trolley. I plan to live on the island, and so that's going to impact me dramatically. But there is a sense of exigency here, and that is, and I know the Commission is probably aware, but I haven't heard anybody talk about it, and that is House Bill 399. Which is going to significantly curtail your ability as a team to collect development fees. And I'll leave it to council to correct me if I'm wrong here, but mobility fees is excluded from that bill. In other words, what you have an opportunity to do here with this decision is to recoup some of your losses responsibly that you got from other historical sources. So I think it's a no-brainer that we should be looking at these mobility fees now. But to the mayor's point, I am concerned about how it will impact commercial development. With respect to new businesses, it's a no-brainer. But what about historical businesses? What happens if something, for example, a building is vacant for 6 months and triggers a change of use or some development plan? Are they going to be subjected to these mobility fees? Because our vision statement says that we want to promote those small businesses. And I think what you can do, certainly by second reading, is look at crafting something that's probably already exists in your LDR that says we have exemptions for businesses who are under those circumstances. Maybe the first 5,000 square feet or something are exempted so that we can mitigate the cost to the historical businesses that exist in Flagler Beach while recouping the maximum benefit from the businesses that want to develop here, which should be at a premium. So I highly support this. I think you should do it, and I look forward to the second reading.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this agenda item?
Mark Enloof, 261 Ocean Palm Drive. So just as a resident and listen, I just think that's an amazing sales pitch this guy is doing. But personally, all those cities that he talked about totally suck to drive in. There is no mobility exciting part of driving in St. Augustine or Palm Coast or anywhere. I personally like the way it is now. Like you said, we already have the grids. I think you could probably do a lot of what he's talking about in-house. We have a community that people move here because it is very unique. It's not St. Augustine, it's not Fort Worth, it's not Palm Coast. And all I hear is about businesses coming in and businesses this and business more money coming in. And maybe that's a great thing, but as a resident, I personally like that I have to go, it's a nightmare. I have to go down, come down. The 7-Eleven has everything I need. Dollar General, fine. If I have to go over the bridge, you guys have seen the sticker. I now have to deal with the nightmare that was created by the mobility plan and all the developers at Palm Coast on Moody. And I have to go up there, I go up to Planet Fitness, I do all that stuff. It's really nice to be living in Flagler. I feel kind of spoiled here. I got this really nice neighborhood. Kids still ride their bikes in Flagler Beach. Do you know how rare that is? And then the other thing I was thinking, not taking into consideration, I didn't hear anything from this guy, is there are rapidly changing things go on in transportation. And hopefully in 5 or 10 years, we'll all be chauffeured around in limos by robots. And I'm serious, it's going to be a totally different plan. 25 years from now, you don't be driving your cars around. So you spend all this money, and then again, I think you're going to have to redo it in a certain period of time. And I don't know. I just think you guys could do something in-house. And how many more businesses are you planning on bringing in here? Well, as a resident, how do I find out about that? What's going to happen 5 or 10 years from now? Is it all going up down here? Is that going south? Is that going northward? What's going to be the future of Flagler Beach? How do I, as a resident, find out about that? Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this agenda item?
Good evening, Melanie Thompson. Mobility, yes, I get it. Some of the ideas I know is not set in stone, but here's the first thing that I grabbed is Moody Boulevard, one lane, won't work. You've got huge trucks, you've got people hauling campers, Gamble Rogers up north. You've got the work trucks, the builders bringing in supplies. You've got the trucks that bring in the food, the trash trucks. If you've got one lane, where are those trucks going to go in those big vehicles, semis? Are they going to go through the residential areas and bypass downtown to go where they need to go? And I'm sure if I lived on one of those roads, I don't want the extra traffic. And the other thing is, yes, the roundabout is not a very good idea at that particular place. It's fine when there's a larger area to go around, but that's a very condensed intersection unless you plan to get rid of what's there and make room for a roundabout. And then the other thing was, it seems like, another thing, I've driven through Gainesville and gotten lost. I've driven over curbs, one way, this way. It's crazy. I don't go to St. Augustine for that reason. It's too complicated to get anywhere. And then also, it looks to me like you want people to come, but when you drive here, what do? You need to just, it's like you come here and you want everybody to just get out of your cars and walk around. It seems more geared to the people that live here. Unless you have parking places and somewhere to park your car and get out like you're going to supposedly plan golf carts, bicycles, whatever, walk around in 100-degree weather on asphalt and concrete, it's going to be pass-through. People are going to not want to come to downtown. They're going to want to take the back streets to get away from the congestion, which is not going to bring any business to the people that's on A1A right now or even Moody. So, just all. That's my thought. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment on this agenda item? All right, seeing no one close public comment, bring it back up here for discussion. Further discussion, comments? Mayor?
I'm still in favor. Where to go?
Commissioner Santori?
Yeah, Ms. McClenning, do you have any response to Mr. Tony's question about, I think it was changing the square footage requirements? Like, do you think that would be beneficial?
If it's an existing, whatever, it's only the additional square footage if there was going to be. But if it was already built, so the first 1,500 square feet are not going to get, they're not going to have an impact fee. It's only the additional, if they built it from 1,500 to 2,000, it's that additional 500 square feet that would get an impact fee. And it hasn't slowed development down anywhere else where they have impact fees, clearly.
Either way, the way we wrote the ordinance, if it's retail to retail, they wouldn't pay anything. If it's retail to a chain type of use or a higher impact use, they will pay the difference. But if it's sitting vacant for 6 months, I think we actually have up to a 3-year horizon in there, maybe a little bit longer than that, they could redevelop it and not pay any fee at all. It's really only if you would trigger a higher level use and you would pay the difference.
What about same use, larger square footage?
You pay the difference.
Right, just prorate. Yeah,
Correct.
got it.
So if you go from 10,000 to 12,000, you'd pay for the 2,000 square feet additional.
Mr. Santori.
Yeah, and maybe you could, is it okay if he addresses some of the other concerns, how this mobility fee actually solves, it seems like a lot of the concerns that the citizens have?
Give you more specific.
Such as, the growth, so we're getting all this new growth, and with this new growth on the other side of the bridge, they're gonna come here. And so they're gonna clog the roads, trying to find parking, and it seems like what we can do is capitalize on that and use those funds to build the sidewalks, additional parking. I mean, look, in 25 years, maybe there will be trolley systems and a marine trolley system. We don't know, but it seems like there's things in the plan to help address those things and to help traffic move smoothly through the uses of roundabouts. So,
Yeah, there are a number of those initiatives that are identified in the plan. One of them is sort of about parking management. And so what some other communities have done is they've provided areas for parking that are paid, and then the residents in the community have gotten passes, and the residents don't pay anything, or they pay cheaper to park on street, and if you're not a resident, you pay more to park on street. But again, that's a follow on there. There's only so much you can handle on one type of project, but that's a parking management initiative. So there are a lot of different ways you can go about solving transportation. There's not a magic bullet. If there was, you'd already have it. But there are a lot of things that you can do follow on to recoup costs and to basically capture the people that are creating the impact, having them pay for that type of an impact.
thank you. So basically, this helps get us the money to help fix any of those issues.
Correct. It basically lays the groundwork for you to start, implementing those type of programs.
Further discussion? Mr. Cunningham? Good? No? I guess from staff or city manager, attorney, so this is, impact fees are not an enterprise fund. But they're earmarked for certain things.
Only can be used for infrastructure improvements.
Correct.
In this case, mobility improvements.
So these are gonna have, say, their own line item in the budget?
Beyond line item, they have their own account in the budget, yes.
Right, okay. And then it would be only certain capital improvements that would meet those criteria that it can be used for.
That's right. It's only the infrastructure demands that's created by the new development.
Right.
So you could not even use it in small compact city like Flagler Beach. You don't run into this problem. But if you think of a large city, if you have a city where you have an impact over here, but you're spending your impact fees over there, you're subject to challenge for that too, because you've got to be putting those where they're actually, these are designed to offset the impacts of development. We're collecting them for that purpose. By the same token, if we don't spend the impact fees within a reasonable amount of time, we could be subject to having to give them back to the developers who paid them, because they are only there for the impact of that development that has come in.
Right. I wanted to make sure, just cover that base mostly for the public so they understand where the money's going, how it's going to be spent, et cetera. All right, further discussion? Anything, call the roll.
Commissioner Santori?
Yes to motion?
Commissioner Spradley?
Yes to the motion.
Commissioner Sherman?
Yes.
Commissioner Cunningham?
Yes.
Chair Cooley?
Yes to the motion. Motion passes unanimous, 5-0. Go to staff reports, city attorney.
Things, just some litigation updates. The Maseo lawsuit still has not been served, but it has been tendered to insurance. Insurance has to assign defense counsel, so when it is ultimately served, it will be, insurance carrier has assigned it to counsel, if that's not what I said. It will be covered by your insurance, the defense of that will be. So that's that one. The Noble challenge to the annexation, that's a petition for writ of certiorari. It actually follows a slightly different process. It was a bare bones filing with a contemporaneous motion to amend. Mr. Tanner has been in touch with me to schedule a hearing on his motion to amend. That is scheduled for May 11th. So we will see what the court does with it there. Unlike the Maseo lawsuit just being an example of it, typical litigation, a lawsuit, as opposed to petition for writ of certiorari. You know, when you get served with a lawsuit, you have to answer the lawsuit. Petition for writ of certiorari is a little bit different in that petition for writ of certiorari is filed. In this case, this is all on hold because of that immediate motion to amend. But normally what happens is the court reviews it. If there's a basis for if they get past the first threshold, which is basically they've stated, a good faith basis for petition, then the court orders a show cause order to order a response to be filed. So there is no response necessary at this point to that petition because we're not to that point yet. So really the next step in it will be the motion to amend hearing, and in preparation for that, we may file any opposition that we have to that between now and then, or we may argue it orally there. I'm still analyzing the arguments made and what's been filed. It's difficult with the bare bones because there's really just bones there, so the arguments have not been made, which will likely be our main argument on the motion to amend and defense at this point, that there is a 30-day deadline for filing petition for writ of certiorari for a reason, and even this bare bones filing may not have had enough bones to it, and that will likely be the argument we make at the motion to amend hearing. Third one is the Cortez code enforcement lien foreclosure. The clerk, either today or yesterday, the clerk has just entered the clerk's default, so Abby told me today she's filing the motion for default final judgment, which that will be the hearing in front of the judge. Once that's granted, then we're on the track towards foreclosure sale, and it is continuing to move forward. Any questions about any of those?
Are we looking at any potential shade meetings coming up?
No. Not that I would foresee. Shade meetings, we're talking about settlement negotiations and litigation expenses, and so we're a long way from those in any of those at this point. In any litigation, you may or may not get there depending on how the litigation goes, but you're a long way from anything like that at this point.
Mr. Spradley.
What's the city's deductible?
I think 5,000, if I remember it right. I think it's 5,000.
Less than mine, okay.
Any other questions for city attorney? City manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First of all, thanks for your efforts at the strategic session. The feedback from the staff was that they very much enjoyed hearing the discussion amongst you to get a better understanding of the direction that you want to provide to the city. I did give you a colorized handout, which is the first crack. It's still a draft. So please look that over, and if there's anything in those color codes that you don't think I've accurately coded, please let me know. I still need to add, some of the longer other items that were discussed at the end of the meeting, but that's just the first crack, so please let me know. Upcoming events, we got the Friday Flicks, trying to stay with the patriotic theme. It's an old-time Disney Johnny Tremaine, which is about Paul Revere's ride, which ironically happened on April 18th, but we're showing the movie on April 17th. On April 18th, we have the community dinner, and I'd like to take the time to thank the restaurants. There's 10 of them: Barn Hills, Craves, Faro Beachside Eatery, Flagler Fish Company, Funky Pelican, Golden Lion next door, the Pierogi Shop, Salty Rim, and Tortuga's Florida Kitchen and Bar. And we do have beverages being offered by the old A1A Distillery and Tony's Wine Cabana, and we will have desserts provided by Swillerbees and Publix. So we sold 113 tickets. So if you didn't buy a ticket, you're out of luck. Doors will open at 5, dinner is served at 6, and we'll be also auctioning off some of our Centennial banners for the first time. So we'll try and get those out. I did provide you also a copy of the CRA annual report, so you're notified of that. Link to that report will be published in the local newspaper to satisfy the statutory requirements for that. Wickline Playground is nearing completion. Probably in the next 30 to 45 days it'll be done. What we'd like to do is probably tie in perhaps the Johnny Tremaine movie on the 17th is at Veterans Park. We may move the May movie to Wickline Park and have a ribbon cutting on the playground the same night that we show the movie at Wickline Park. So that's still a work in process. I talked about FDOTs on golf carts. Had a meeting with FDOT official last week. They still haven't said no, so we're still pushing. One item that came out of the strategic session was paid parking. And I had my first discussion with Park Volusia today. I gave you a copy of a draft, RFQ, so please look that over. I did have a tentative timeline in there, and that shows you, if you follow that timeline, that shows you making an award for a parking management company in early September. In all likelihood, it would take 60 to 90 days to fully implement, so the discussion is kind of like we could implement a trial period or an introductory period in January and February and go live with paid parking on March 1st before spring break hits. So that's, again, I want to see a lot of nodding yes, that yes, we're going to go down this rabbit hole. So that's, I had a good discussion. They actually talked about the possibility of, I reached out, when I talked to Park Volusia today, they actually offered the idea of perhaps you could piggyback off of the Park Volusia contract. I had some preliminary discussions with Drew. And it's probably got to be more exact than what they have, but that is an option that we're going to explore. And then the TPO meeting I said I was going to attend to support our boardwalk project. So pending that, any questions? As I did send an email, Chief Blanchett is in the hospital for something completely unrelated to his current long-term treatment. He will not be able to participate tomorrow for the oral boards that we have for the police chief. I did reassure him that we will schedule a Zoom meeting with the oral board as soon as possible next week. So that I went to the hospital to specifically reassure Chief Blanchett that this is not going to have any bearing on your inability to attend the oral boards tomorrow. So that process is moving forward, and hopefully we'll have something ready to go by the end of the month. And we also have an accepted offer for the new building official. So he should be on board at the end of this month before Mr. McFadden leaves himself. So staff is coming along.
Questions for city manager? Mr. Santori.
Yeah, in regards to the parking, paid parking, can we possibly discuss engaging with the county on that too, to see if they're willing to do paid parking at their county beaches? And it would be interesting if either we cooperate with the same company or at least implement it at the same time. And then that way there's, I think, minimal impacts to the city of people going elsewhere. They can still come here and pay for parking.
Mayor?
All I would say, people are going to come here regardless. There's more than enough room for them to head to the county as well, in my opinion. But I don't think that's going to have an impact one way or the other. They're still going to come here and they're still going to park here, and I don't think we'll see a decline.
Since you're already talking with Volusia, it'd be interesting to ask for some of their data, on what have they seen as far as, some of the macro things, tourism and just volume of vehicles, since they implemented, like a before and after.
And we'll have some of that data. If you look at some of the timeline is to put out a request for qualifications. We'll put together an evaluation team to evaluate. I did an online search and found 10 to 12 nationally based parking management companies that handle municipality. We'll make sure that the RFQ is delivered directly to them as well as posted on DemandStar. The evaluation team will select 3 or 4, and then since historically we have not made use of all 4 scheduled budget workshops, I plan on the tentative schedule you'll see, on the last one that is scheduled is August 11th, we will invite the top 3 or 4 parking management companies here to offer their presentation to you, with the intent that on September 12th, you'll make a decision on which parking management company to enter into negotiations with. So that's all tentative schedule laid out. I'm going to send it to some of the parking management companies that I've discussed with before, saying, hey, is this too aggressive of a timeline? Do you need more time? I think I originally put that we publish the request for qualifications on June 2nd, and they'd be due July 3rd. So they have a month to respond to it, and then it's just moving forward with the process. But I got the impression from the strategic session, let's keep moving forward on this.
Correct. Any other questions for city manager? Yeah, in Park Volusia, that's a slick program. I'm one of their customers. I had to bypass it because I'm always going down there.
And again, if you want to, I recommend that you do some searching online because Fernandina Beach, I had nothing to do with it when I was there, but they've just implemented paid parking as well. They've had some difficulties, and when I talked to Park Volusia is actually a partnership with One Parking, which is the same company that rolled out that Fernandina Beach selected. So when you look at Park Volusia, there's really nothing immediately that tells you that they're dealing with a third-party vendor, but it is One Parking. So they had some insights as to how they believe the Fernandina Beach rollout, things that went well, things that haven't gone well, how much money they're making. So that's, but there's definitely a lot of stories if you do an internet search for paid parking in Fernandina Beach. So.
All right. City planner.
Thank you. I have a workshop scheduled with the PARB board to review some of our ordinances that have some competing interests. So you may be seeing some of those come down the pike after I work with the PARB board first. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right. Penny. Lieutenant, anything?
Good, thank you.
Mayor.
If everybody, whoever's available, Tuesday the 14th at 10 a.m., we are going to hold a announcement, press conference, however you want to word it, announcing an AED initiative that will be kicked off for the city. So more information, 10 a.m. the 14th, in front of City Hall. And that's it.
All right, Commissioner Santori.
Yes, the only thing I got was from resident Mr. Dowley when he emailed us about the Palm Drive project. How, I was just curious to see if we all still have the appetite of supporting that or walking that back, because we don't have, it just seems like we don't have to maintain that pond. Is that correct?
That's the.
I know the pond is being discussed. Functional to the extent that it's an obligation for maintenance, no. Where it spills over when you have defunct HOAs is it spilling, and I think this is to the question you asked I saw in the email, is it spilling over, is it creating a public issue? So to the extent that we're preventing a larger public problem beyond that, yes, there could be a duty that kicks in, or if there's a St. John's permit involved, there can be duties that kick in. But if it is for the strictly private benefit, no, there is no obligation. It's the public versus the private I think your question was surrounding also.
Okay. And did we have is there a permit in place for that one? Palm Drive? Okay. Then never mind then. Thank you.
Yeah, just on, quality of life obligation, I would really think we should stay the course on that. That's been bounced around for, many years. Yeah. All right, Commissioner Spradley.
Thank you. I attended the Public Safety Coordinating Committee, didn't think of the name of it, meeting earlier this week. One thing of note, there is a $50,000 grant that is available for either fire or police for public safety, a public safety project. If either fire or police chief have an interest in that, then I can get that information for you. The deadline comes up at the end of the month. It seemed from what the sheriff said, who conducted the meeting, there had not been a lot of applicants yet, so that may be an opportunity for someone. Also, the strategic planning session, I want to commend the city manager and staff. I thought that was excellent. Of the ones that I've been to since I've been sitting up here, that was by far the most productive. Maybe it was coincidental that we didn't have someone running it from outside the city, but clearly, from my point of view, I thought it was very productive, and that's should be the road map going forward, as I see it. Third and last, you know, I've been sitting up here for 3 years, and we're very fortunate that we have some folks in the community, and there are many who come here a lot. And I see Ms. Thompson sitting there right now. But between Mr. Finley, Mr. Matitka, Mr. Reynolds, you know, we have some very active community members that always, my ears open up when I see any of those four and others come up and to discuss things that's on their minds. And I think we're really lucky as a community that we have those that are engaged. RJ used to be that way till he turned to the dark side and came up here. But I think it's really good that we're very fortunate that we have that participation in our community. It's really helpful to me. Thank you.
Mr. Sherman.
I don't have anything tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Cunningham.
Yeah, I got a couple things. I only know this because it was pouring down rain yesterday, and my wife was taking me to pick my truck up, and she dropped the water bill off at the new box. And it's in the radius, and when you make that turn, you can't reach out the window. You got to open the door. So she got soaked, and she wasn't happy at all about that. I don't know if that can be put in a straight line and not in the radius of the curb, but it's not convenient to be able to reach out and put your bill in there. The new pavers look good. I don't know what kind of road base we use, but they're sinking already. Could be because of the rain. It's a tripping hazard. I looked at it before we came in. The street at the south end where the water tower is, where we put the new sidewalk in a few months ago, it blocked the drainage off, and water stands right there off of A1A in that street, and it sits there for a while, and it's sat there so long there's road failure beginning. It already happened. That sidewalk that was put in keeps the water from being able to drain now. And the new driveway they're putting in to get to the water tower, I assume that's going to be 6 inches because it's going to crack to pieces. That's it.
Everything?
Yeah.
So I'll echo Commissioner Sproutley's comments. I thought the strategic planning session was one of the best we've had, definitely surpassed the last couple by a long shot. I liked mostly how tactical it was. And, you know, let's just talk about what does the city need, how do we get it there, and, you know, what tactics. And I look forward to checking out the sheets and everything. And I guess my only concern is we covered a lot of ground on a lot of different topics, and it seemed like most of the substance came towards the beginning of the meeting and then towards the very end of the meeting. And I just want to make sure, like, one of the gaps, and again, I haven't seen any of this stuff, so I'm only talking just out of fear, but one of the gaps in previous strategic planning sessions is Commission would have all these ideas of things we wanted to pursue, and then somehow it didn't get documented. So I hope we got some good safety nets so we can capture everything that we kind of decided as a group was a good idea, because there was a lot of really good ideas bounced around and just very specific, you know, tasks that were on the to-dos.
And I think we had at least 4 people taking notes. We had Miss Overstreet, we had Miss Kuhn, Miss O'Flaherty was taking notes as well, and then I was making notes. And that's why I gave you that preliminary to make sure that at least on the pre-existing 10-year goals, make sure I've captured the ones you think we've completed, the ones you want to kick off the list. And yes, I know there's a lengthy list of things that you want added to the list. We just haven't gotten to that yet.
Okay, got it. And again, that's not driven by anything other than that's always my fear, because that seems to have been the trend in many years in the past where we came up with all kinds of stuff and it never made it to paper. The only other new stuff I got, and this is to bounce off y'all, there's a lot of municipalities, mostly beachside, that are drafting ordinances to protect their own municipalities concerning spring break. And they're drafting specific spring break ordinances. And and it covers a lot of different things. It covers alcohol, beach preservation, vehicles, parking lots. Like it covers quite a bit. And I don't know a whole lot about them. But the reason why this hit my radar is there's multiple publications, and they were sent to me, that are putting out articles about municipalities and places that don't have strict spring break rules. You know where that's going. Now we've become a destination for probably something our citizens won't appreciate. So I don't know a lot about it. I'm sure Drew knows quite a bit more, but the concept of, you know, do y'all want to get ahead of where that is and maybe look at following those other larger municipalities' footsteps about, you know, just drafting some measures to ensure that we don't have potential issues like what we're seeing and hearing about. I didn't know if there's an appetite for that. And I don't have specifics, you know. I'm not going to stir the pot.
What do you think of this? What if I have been following those news stories. I haven't taken a close dive at the ordinances, but I have been following those stories because they interest me. I can assemble some of those ordinances, provide them to the city clerk, so you can distribute them, so you can all review them. Not even make an agenda item yet. You can review them, and then if you want to move forward, you'll at least have a little background to what direction you might want to move forward after looking at what some other jurisdictions have done.
Right. And I have some papers that were given to me by a citizen. I'll just give the Penny. She can extract all the text and push it out. But it has like Fort Lauderdale. It has a link to Fort Lauderdale, and it talks about just kind of some of the things that they're going after. But the main thing that kind of was the aha moment was when I got links to these articles from publications, even News Journal put out stories about beaches that if you're going to spring break, and they worded it in a way that it didn't stir the pot, but inadvertently it will. It's just, it covered places that basically are lax with rules on spring break. And it was a shame to see that. I couldn't believe those articles even existed, but they're out there. And I used my little AI app to pull even more articles. And Flagler Beach is mentioned in almost all of them. And I was like, well, this probably isn't desirable. So I'll turn this into Penny, and we can start just kicking that around, and just something to get ahead of, because I don't know if y'all have been paying attention, but just today, Volusia Sheriff Chitwood put out something about another pop-up he dealt with about taking over their pier, and he actively squashed that. So the groups that want these crazy parties are getting more aggressive, and then in response, the municipalities and law enforcement are having to get more aggressive. And so we've been very fortunate so far. I want to make sure we stay that way. But do y'all have an appetite for at least gathering information on that? And, yeah. Okay. And I'll turn that into Penny. And that was the only thing I got. So with that, we will open up for our last round of public comment. And any members of the public have public comment?
How y'all doing? Buddy Esberg out of Lehigh Avenue. As you guys go down this path with paid parking, I just wanted you to keep one scenario in mind. It's probably already been brought up, but I know there's talk of residents being given a certain amount of passes, whatever, so we don't have to pay for it. But there are many of us that have short-term rental properties here that do not have designated parking. You know, we already pay taxes, we got property taxes, we got all the bed taxes and all that, so I'm hoping that y'all consider, you know, situations like that we get some sort of a pass for that too, that we can give to residents as they're in and out, you know, sometimes 2 a week, 3 a week, you know, and I can't just have people being charged every night, you know, just for parking out in the public streets here. So please keep that scenario in mind as we're going forward and figuring out this for everybody, making it happy for everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? All right, seeing no one, we'll close public comment. Thank you, voting. And,
Motion to adjourn.